Hey. Oh.
Oh, man.
Jason Reitman. Tonight's host, Kaya Gerber. So, Joe, did you hear Jason Reitman?
Yes.
The Nepo Baby Auteur de jour, circa mid 2000s.
Oh, I remember. I was there.
This
we were
is
there
the
together.
Guy. This is the guy. Do you remember this?
Yes.
Like, this guy was on top of the world.
Yes.
Listen what this dude did from 2007 to 2009. And if you're counting, that's 3 years.
Okay.
Juno. Jennifer's Body. Up in the Air. That's within 3 years.
It's a great run.
3 years. This guy's owning indie cinema.
It's a great run.
I remember, I think it was Bridget Jones' Edge of Reason. But I was seeing a movie in theaters around 2007, 2008. And they played a trailer for Juno in the theater. And this is in Georgia. This is in fucking redneck-ass Georgia, right? And they played a trailer for Juno, and then when Michael Cera comes on the screen with his little tube socks on, coming out of the door, remember that shot in the trailer? This theater literally, like, gasped with, like, some sort of, like, nerd, like, pixie dream girl, nerd, hipster, beta guy energy. You know, like, it was all happening. It was all happening.
It was more than happening. It was the zenith.
It was all happening. This theater gasped at the mere presence of Michael Cera on screen in a trailer.
And they had some twee but probably beloved song in the trailer that we all
the Moldy
responded to.
Peaches. The Moldy
That's
Peaches.
What it was, the Moldy Peaches song.
Yeah, Kimya Dawson had several songs.
And lest we not forget, just a quick shout out to Reitman's first film. Thank you for smoking with the great and talented Aaron Eckhart. I remember
he had already to be fair, he had already done In the Company for Men, the Neil LaBute movie.
So okay.
He was already cooking, but he really got going with Thank You for Smoking.
I have no idea what it's like now, but when that movie first came out, I saw it. I loved it. And I was so excited for Juno, and I fucking loved Jennifer's Body from the jump.
Yeah.
Finally, everybody caught on. Thank you. And then Up in the Air, I remember liking, but the second half sort of, who cares, and kind of a weird. I like Vera Farmiga's in that movie.
Yeah,
she's very good in it.
It has one great moment where George Clooney goes to Vera Farmiga's apartment and then realizes that she's just fully married with a family, and he's like,
oh my god,
nothing to her.
Oh, I forgot about that.
That scene's really good.
Me and Alex talked. That was like a punchline for years because it was like the hardest, saddest thing we had seen.
That's
ever.
A really great scene.
It was good. Yeah. So, but why do you bring up young Jason Reitman?
So because Jason Reitman, after this like boom, 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 and like you said, I think Jennifer's Body has probably aged the best.
Oh yeah, man. No, that is a.
This is something we're going to talk about tonight a lot. Is initial impressions versus how movies age over time, because that's sort of like the fucking definition of M. Night Shyamalan's entire career. Is no one knows what to make of these movies at first, and then over time you can sort of acclimate to what they are and what they mean. So we're going to talk about this theme a lot with M. Night Shyamalan tonight. But Jason Reitman, I think, he makes these Juno, Jennifer's Body, Up in the Air, boom, 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 and then kind of, sort of stumbles after that. And then his last big swing was 2018's Tully with Charlize Theron, who he also made a young adult with.
People liked Young Adult.
I like Young Adult a lot. Young Adult's underrated.
Was
Patton is really good in it.
Nominated for an Academy Award for that, or did I make that up in my head?
So.
Okay, sorry. Never mind. But I remember that also being a good movie.
Yes.
But not a huge hit or anything. But
a good indie.
Movie.
But a good indie, yes. And then he makes Tully with her, and then I guess just out of let's see. I'm trying to check if Charlize was nominated for.
Maybe it was she should have been nominated.
She should
sort
have.
of year.
She should have gotten it. If anybody can check us on that, but Tully was his last like auteur picture. And then since then, and that's 2018, I think. And then since then, he got sent to the salt mines, and he's been working on the Ghostbusters ever since. So he was like, obviously his dad, Ivan Reitman, is the original auteur of the Ghostbusters movies. And so he got sent to the salt mines. He's been working on the Ghostbusters movies. He did the last 2 Ghostbusters.
Hey, but
both of which were fine.
That worked out
both
for him financially speaking, at least.
And we're going to talk, it's the same thing that Guy Ritchie had to do. It's the same thing that we're going to talk about tonight that M. Night Shyamalan had to do. Eventually, the auteur thing sort of fizzles for a second, and you gotta go bang out a couple studio movies, and then they let you get back to the auteurs. And that's what they're doing with Jason Reitman, because now he's coming out this year with his first big swing since Tully, Saturday Night, which is his it's almost like Danny Boyle's Steve Jobs biopic, where it's like a real time. It's a biopic of the early days of Saturday Night Live, but it's all happening in real time in the 3 hours prior to the launch of the first episode.
Oh,
yes.
My actual thought was that's fun.
You're right. As soon as I heard that,
that's fun.
My opinion went up. I was like,
okay,
good. I like that. I like that a lot. I like that a lot. Because that's just gonna simply by the fact of time and space.
That's
and
a
momentum,
good setup for
it. Smooths out over sentimentalization. It's gonna keep it from being sort of over sentimentalized. As a biopic. I think it's gonna have pace. It's gonna have timing. It's gonna have structure. So I like that a lot. But this cast, Joe, I think.
Yeah, I feel like you didn't bring it up to praise it. I feel like you have some sort of twist coming here.
This cast is wild, because what I think we should do, we don't have time to go through this all now.
Okay.
I think in Basement Takes, which is our Patreon-only after show, I think we should do some sort of power rankings of the Saturday Night cast.
That sounds great.
In terms of what we're expecting, what we're most excited about. Let me give you a few highlights here. Okay. So Lorne Michaels, obviously going to be the centerpiece of this movie, right?
Sure.
Because at this point he's a Canadian sketch comedian. He's untested. This is all crazy, right? This is fun Lorne Michaels before Overlord.
This is 1975 Lorne.
So Lorne Michaels at the time of this movie was 31 years old. And he is being portrayed by Sammy Fabelman. You remember the actor who portrayed Sammy Fabelman, who is 21 years old. 21 years old. That's Gabriel LaBelle. So 21-year-old Gabriel LaBelle, Sammy Fabelman, is portraying 31-year-old Lorne Michaels in this movie. We also have the very handsome Dylan O'Brien, heartthrob actor from the Maze Runner franchise, and Teen Wolf, who he's been eager to do comedy for a while. He showed up as a cameo, a sort of playing himself thing in the other two, I think.
A Zac Efron or a John Hamm. No, it's get me in those comedies, please.
He is in the Zac Efron, John Hamm sort of thing, where he is a very handsome guy, but is desperate to be one of the comedy kids. So here you go. He's playing Dan Aykroyd. So
can't get more comedy kid than that.
So congratulations, Dan Aykroyd.
Honestly, you're getting me kind of excited.
Yes.
So far, okay.
Can you imagine if they cast someone to play you in your disgusting youth, and they picked the hunkiest guy?
That'd be amazing.
It'd be amazing.
That'd be so cool.
So congratulations, Dan Aykroyd. Lamorne Morris from The New Guy and recently the new season of Fargo is playing Garrett Morris, no relation. So that's I like that. Yes. What'd I say?
The new guy.
The new girl. How dare I? The new girl. This is fun. One of our favorites from May December. Julianne Moore's son in May December.
Yes.
Remember him? Corey Michael Smith. Amazing. He's playing Chevy Chase.
Okay, Brett. Sounding. I think you came here to bash, but
Ella Hunt, the proper British lady from Kevin Costner's Horizon, your favorite movie of 2024.
It's not true, but it's my 7th or 8th.
The woman that Kevin Costner pervily asked to
Kevin Costner doesn't do anything.
Disrobe.
He's not
for no
pervily
reason.
asking that. She's in a movie and 2 lecherous thieves are looking at her from the bush. Kevin Costner didn't do anything.
I'm a normal person. I'm not like a pervert. I like sex in movies. I enjoy sexuality.
Wait, okay, go on.
This moment in Horizon is pervy.
Oh my goodness
It crosses
gracious.
the line. It is like
Get your fucking brain checked.
But like a bizarrely unnecessary nude scene for a clearly like the most gorgeous woman in the whole movie. It's like, Kevin, I get it, Kevin. I understand what's going on here. And I don't like it.
Honestly,
you're
Kevin just catching a stray because you've realized halfway through your opening bit that you can't wait for Saturday Night, the Jason Reitman movie.
Kevin's
sounds
not catching
great.
A stray. Kevin's catching a fucking straight fucking like.
Don't you put that down?
I'm putting the dot.
If you're watching on YouTube, you can see Brett's ugly, hateful, violent behavior.
Figurative. This is figurative.
Get that out of here. First of all,
I trust the audience's knowledge of figurative versus literal. This is figurative. I don't support actual gun violence against Kevin Costner or any human being. This is a figurative targeting of Kevin Costner for his pervy scene with Ella Hunt, who is playing.
That is insane. Oh yeah, who's Ella Hunt?
Can you guess who she's playing in Saturday Night? Gilda Radner.
Oh, duh.
And then we've got newcomer Matt Wood playing John Belushi.
Don't know who that is.
Nicholas Braun, cousin Greg from Succession, is according to the credits playing Andy Kaufman and Jim Henson.
That'll be a funny little.
That's where I started to say,
Andy
"Oh
Kaufman.
no,
yeah,
no!"
That's the first raised eyebrow from Joe.
But here's where I said, maybe." Playing Dick Ebersol, the NBC producer, who like is the classic like guy in between the artists and the studio. The guy who is a guy who we sympathize with a lot, I think, right? The guy who understands the artistic genius that is happening with the SNL thing, but still has to like convince the NBC fucking brass to get this thing on the air.
Thank you for the passionate defense of Ebersol.
Dick Ebersol.
Thank you.
Is being portrayed by Cooper Hoffman, Philip Seymour Hoffman's son, who was amazing in Licorice Pizza. And all I've wanted is more fucking Cooper Hoffman in my life because he was amazing. Licorice Pizza.
Honestly, you come to me, you say Jason Reitman's doing an SNL movie. I go,
Let me give you a couple.
But then
more.
You tell me all that, and I say,
a couple more.
Okay.
Matthew Rhys is playing George Carlin. That sounds crazy.
Okay.
J.K. Simmons is playing Big Dick Milton Berle. That sounds amazing.
That's good.
Everyone's favorite omnipresent Nepo baby, Kaya Gerber, is in this as Jacqueline Carlin, who was Chevy Chase's wife at the time.
Okay.
And because it's like,
Kaya Gerber
it's not an
indie
movie circa 2024 if fucking Nepo baby Kaya Gerber ain't in it.
Leave Kaya alone.
I will not leave Kaya alone because she's a talentless hack who just gets by on her looks. I'm sorry. Prove me wrong. I mean,
look, sometimes, like, it's not like,
she sucks.
She's not in trouble because they gave her work. She's just going to work.
I'm not trying to take work away.
She's just going to work, doing her thing.
But we're film critics. I mean, like, this is what we do. I don't know,
what film is Kaya Gerber in? Saturday Night.
Bottoms.
She's in Bottoms.
And in tons of other shit.
Yeah, she is in a lot of movies.
She's the obligatory Nepo baby hire.
I suppose so. I don't know. I'm kind of like, I think I've reached the part of hearing the word Nepo baby where I just immediately, I throw up a hand and go, I don't know. It seems too dismissive. Unfortunately, in this case,
so you're
you
part
might
of
be
the
right.
Nepo baby counter
No,
reaction.
I'm not part of anything. I'm just sitting here thinking to myself.
You are. You're part of the counter reaction that says we've been too hard on these Nepo babies.
No. I'm just saying maybe there's other ways to bring people down than calling them Nepo baby. And we could be more creative.
You're right.
In our deconstruction.
Yeah,
of Kaya
I agree.
Gerber.
I agree. Like the actual performances she puts on film, which are forgettable at best. Forgettable is good. Forgettable means we don't focus on it. Forgettable is the best thing she's hoping
she's
for.
Not
is forgettable.
Particularly like, I don't know this because I'm not target audience, but she's also doesn't.
This is Cindy Crawford's kid, by the way.
She doesn't.
And Randy Gerber, who, and by the way, if you think we're being mean, okay,
we're not being mean.
Her mom is Cindy Gerber. Her dad is Randy Gerber, who is the business partner of George Clooney in Casamigos, which means he's literally a fucking billionaire off of tequila that he had nothing to do with. So do not fucking weep for Kaya Gerber, okay?
No one's
We can
weeping.
just focus on the performances, and the performances are trash, okay? I'm sorry.
Kaya also doesn't seem to be bringing a lot to the cultural table. Like, you think
Yeah.
you think on
Yes,
the
you
think on the other side of the phone, or like not in the movies or TV, you think like, oh, she must be really like active, cool, and in the right rooms behind the scenes.
No.
I never get that impression from her.
No,
She never seems to be central in any sort of cultural sort of moment.
She's kind of the worst kind of Nepo baby, where she thinks she's a performer and so she's too good for just like constant exposure, where it's like at least Kim Kardashian just like puts herself on film 24/7 and without any sense of sort of like, any sense of awareness. I feel like Kaya Gerber is starting to slide into this role where she thinks she's like an essential performer.
No, she does not. Does she really? Maybe she does. I don't know anything about her. This is like when you went off about Paul Mescal at Wimbledon. Maybe you're seeing a whole slew of tweets I'm not aware of.
This garbage generation. You need to start showing up for these fucking movies, okay? The cute Instagram posts are not enough. Man cannot live off memes alone, okay? You need to start showing up for roles. You need to put yourself on film in meaningful ways, okay? I can't stand this nonsense, this nothingness, this blah, blah, blah. Willem Dafoe is also in this movie.
Of course he is. Willem Dafoe.
Are we reaching Willem? Are we in danger of Willem Dafoe content fatigue here?
I am Sandra Bullock.
Never thought I would say this.
AirPod falling out of the goddamn sky in gravity right now when it comes to Willem Dafoe. He's starting to become a symbol of, this might not be that good. Because every time I see him, he's getting Jeff Goldblum territory.
Overexposure.
He's getting into Jeff Goldblum territory where, here comes Willem to do his weird thing again. And this is one of our great actors. This is one of the great American actors.
No question about it.
And this is the guy,
no question about it.
And this is the guy, before even his incredible run of early films, his incredible run like redefining the American theater in the Wooster Group, in Brooklyn and
we're on
Berlin,
his side.
and like he's the greatest. But he's in a lot of movies. I wish he got a little more selective. He's getting a little too much of a meme for me liking. I need him to go back. I need him to do an Antichrist. I need him just to pause, just roll back the clock one tick. Being in Yorgos's don't count. Those are hip little nothings.
No.
Those are hip little trifles. No more hip little trifles.
That's it. Too many trifles, Defoe.
You're gorging on a whole box of chocolates. It's like when I bring, every time I go home for Christmas, Brett, I get a box of C's at the airport to bring home to my mother.
Good for you.
And guess what? Everybody fucking loves them all Christmas long. But you know what? They're gone before you know it. And I say, who ate all the little trifles? Pointing a finger at you, Willem.
And
maybe you're the little piggy gobbling up too many trifles. Your tummy's gonna hurt. Go do a play, asshole.
I think he was cashing in on 3 decades of like hardcore good work, and he's decided to like cash in on it.
Fine,
that's fine.
Fine.
But this is it. This is the limit. Okay, you've cashed in. Now you need to go back and do the work.
You're gonna become Christopher Walken if you're not careful.
Do
you know what I mean?
Exactly. And you're not Christopher
And you're
Walken.
not. And I love Christopher Walken, but he scratches a particular itch. An itch that I would never ask Willem Dafoe to scratch because he's scary and good at acting. I don't know. No. Brett, this has been a very eye-opening cold open.
Willem Dafoe, you do not want to be Christopher Walken.
No, you don't.
Do not want to be Christopher Walken because, look, I'm fine with Christopher Walken.
I love Christopher Walken.
If I took a hard look at his filmography,
no,
I could come on here and tell you that guy's a fucking overrated joke. I do not want to say the same thing about Willem Dafoe. I do not want to say the same thing about Willem Dafoe because that's a real fucking performer there.
See, but oh fuck, not Dafoe. Who'd you just say?
Christopher Walken.
Thank you. Walken has what Kaya Gerber doesn't have. The whole charismatic life off the screen.
Yes.
Kaya needs to implement some of that into her oeuvre, and not just like modeling pictures, and not just like she needs to have an exciting life outside of this big screen because she's not going to have it in the big screen. I'll give you that. That's fine. Right. But anyway, I'm worried about you, Willem. You know what? Maybe this isn't really a body slam of Willem. It's more of a we're worried about you. It's the beginning of an intervention. It's the beginning of a conversation. I feel like we're going to see Willem Dafoe popping up in fucking Thunderbolts. You know what I mean?
Yes,
he's going to play like, he's going to go do a Marvel next. He's going to make a cameo in this bad thing that he's in the Saturday Night movie, which might be a return to form for mediocre.
This is the
Jason
pre-intervention. Reitman. This is us telling you you're not past hope, but you're
not past hope at all.
You're showing some really, red flags.
Like,
we're getting some red flags.
It's like he has to be more.
And we
disciplined.
love you. We root for you. We're more loyal to you than your reps are to you. Your reps
easily.
are the ones pimping you out to every fucking
That's
faux indie fucking auteur who's ever lived.
Right.
We're telling you you're better than that, baby. And maybe look, get your money, get paid.
But that's enough.
But you got paid like 8 times in a row now.
Get paid once every 2 years. Yes. He's so much money. He's been in 1 million movies.
The next one needs to be a good one. You need to pick a good project.
He needs to do something like not just like I'm being weird and twee. It's like
be the star
just
of something.
Be actually weird. Or even better, that'd be great. Go be like the handsome ingenue in something, or go be like a dapper Dan, or go be a sympathetic character. I would love to see Willem Dafoe be really sympathetic. He's more than capable of it. He's one of our greatest living actors,
He's the best.
I just want him to push himself. You're not pushing yourself because Yorgos made you wear a swim cap inside. That's not pushing yourself.
This week on Movies, baby, Joe. I cannot wait for this episode.
Let's get going.
I've been thinking about this all week. We've been like every fucking day been preparing for this. This has been like I feel like the way people feel for the Olympics, where like I've been like at
training
Thursday at 6 p.m. I'm gonna have to run the 100-meter dash for one shot at glory. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And I'm gonna be preparing fucking all day and fucking night, no sleep, blah blah blah, for one shot at glory. Well, here it comes. Here's our one shot at glory, because we're gonna be talking about one of your favorite directors, one of my favorite directors, a guy who I don't think gets enough credit in the pantheon of American filmmakers. Maybe we'll fix that tonight. Maybe this will be the big sort of cultural shift moment right here on Movies, baby. Joe, we're going to be talking about M. Night Shyamalan all night because we are reviewing his new movie, Trap.
Yeah.
And we're picking our top 5. We're going to go through his whole filmography.
Yeah, we have to.
And we're going to pick our top 5 Shyamalans of all time, which is going to get real tense and real tough. Because you might be saying, top 5? Oh, I can't even think of a top 2.
Yeah, well, that person should log off.
I can't even think of a top 3.
What?
Bitch, I have a top 12 that I'm trying to hone into a top 5.
Exactly.
Because I understand Shyamalan. Joe understands Shyamalan.
Yeah.
We both understand the value that this man brings to contemporary American filmmaking. He is the last of his kind and the future of Hollywood at the same time. We're going to be getting into the filmography, the meaning, the value of M. Night Shyamalan tonight. This is an all Shyamalan episode. Plus, we'll hit a couple box office and news items as well. But really, this episode is about the man, the myth, the legend, M. Night Shyamalan. Joe, are you ready?
Born ready.
Margo, roll that theme song. See, I told you this is why we do it live every episode. At the beginning, you were like, no, pre-record it. This is why we do it live, because it gets the energy up. I can't get enough movies, baby. I can't get enough movies, baby. But how about you? Do you have it bad too? Where my Shyamalan heads at? Whenever one ends, it's like the death of a friend. I get to wishing that there were 2 more reels. And then a voice cries out, move, baby, you're in my seat, and you don't want to mess with who? The Philly movie freak.
I can't get enough movies, baby. I can't get enough movies, baby. Yes, it's true. Oh, I've got it bad, too.
You're locked in tonight, I can tell.
Every night of the year, like the moon, I appear at every movie theater all over town. Cut to black, roll credits. Whoa, baby, I'm lost in a fog. I need someone to talk to.
Hi.
Look, it's the Georgia movie dog. It's Brett, the dog.
Can't get enough movies.
I can't get enough movies, baby.
Can't get enough movies, baby.
I can't get enough. Yeah! Welcome to Movies, Baby, the weekly show where we break down the hottest movie news, review the latest releases, shout out forgotten classics, and prophesy the future of Hollywood. My name's Joe Cilio, a.k.a. the Philly Movie Freak, here as always with my partner and friend, the Georgia movie dog, Brett Bowen.
Go Dogs! Joe, M. Night Shyamalan's filmography and legacy awaits us. But
yeah, let's get into it.
And we're going to dig deep into that. But first, we got to take a look at the money this week. Margot, show me the box office. Holy shit.
Boom.
Oh, hold on a second.
Wow, wait, what?
Hold up. What the fuck? That's a 96 on week 2? Oh my God. Okay.
Oh my God.
So
$96 million on week 2 for Deadpool and Wolverine.
If you round up, that's 97.
That's
all right.
so much.
So Deadpool and Wolverine made $97 million in its second weekend. Now that qualifies for the 8th biggest second weekend ever in the history of movies.
It's
inflation
insane.
Included.
How did they added 20 screens?
Yeah. What were the 20 screens that
like
didn't
20
have
screens that didn't have it on? They were like,
yeah,
whatever, get whatever off of it. We have to put on more Deadpool and Wolverine screenings. It's insane.
Yeah, no, there was a theater in Trenton, New Jersey that was like, you know what, we can probably bump Harold and the Purple Crayon off a screen.
Good idea. Because though Deadpool and Wolverine came out domestically with a $96 million weekend, we had some new films come out, Brett, that didn't really do as well. You just mentioned Harold and the Purple Crown. That movie with everyone's favorite voice.
Yes, everyone's favorite RFK Jr. Fundraising cruise.
Everyone's favorite anti-vax, buffed up weirdo, Zach Levy, stars in Harold and the Purple Crown. Which we both have children.
Yeah.
My son enjoys reading Harold and the Purple Crown despite his young age.
Yeah.
And I didn't even fucking think about taking my son to see this movie. Who gives a crap about this? Harold and the Purple Crown domestically brought in a wildly underwhelming and absolutely miserable, worse than Horizon, $6 million on 3,300 screens, which is 75% of theaters available. That is embarrassing for Levy. I don't think they're going to be making Shazam 3 now.
No, I mean, can we just presumably that went into production while he still had some Shazam sort of Riz juice going on. I think this is the end of the Zachary Levy thing because now, the thing is, as we'll talk about with The Rock in a couple minutes, you can totally surf on right wing politics in Hollywood as long as you're making money.
Right.
Literally, I love this thing about how conservatives can't make it in Hollywood. Sure they can. Where do you think fucking Ronald Reagan came from? Conservatives can fucking rock and roll. Conservatives can fucking destroy in Hollywood as long as they're making money in their movies. The problem is when they stop making money, then they also then it's the double whammy of and they're conservative. So that's I think we're done with this person. So hopefully we're done with the Zachary Levy farce.
I'm sure we'll see him again.
Really?
I think he has probably great numbers in certain parts of the country, and he's handsome. I bet they can write this off.
Well,
we'll see him.
You know
again.
where we're gonna see him again.
No.
Is in this alternative Christian cinema thing that's
he'd kill.
Crazy. Yes, that's where he's going to go now.
He'd murder.
That's where he goes now. He goes to the farm system. Because as we've talked about, and look, there's more of these movies coming out. I literally cannot just stomach them to talk about them. But there is, as we've said before, this truly tangible, trackable rise of this alternative evangelical family cinema, which just means sort of anti-trans, anti-gay, blah blah blah, and that's where that's the cinema of Kevin Sorbo and Scott Baio and
Kirk Cameron.
So that's where Zachary Levi, and honestly, he can be the fucking
he could be the
fucking Tom Cruise of that fucking universe.
Oh my gosh. He should totally.
Well, that's where he's going to go now.
But Brett, that wasn't the only new movie this week. There was another new movie from the great and powerful M. Night Shyamalan,
who is the subject of tonight's episode, Trap. So, before we get into all the stuff around M. Night's career and filmography and our review of Trap, let's look at just the financials. Trap slightly underperformed at basically 15-16 million opening weekend. With worldwide, it was at 20 million. The projections were that domestically this would be somewhere in the 20 to 25 range. So it did not meet those expectations, but it also wasn't like a total collapse. It was sort of like a M. Night just sort of lives to fight another day kind of numbers.
He's gonna. It's going to around break even, but we're about to celebrate M. Night's amazing career, but I don't want to kind of undersell how much of a slight disappointment this must have been for him because of a great trailer. Well, because of a great trailer, but also because his four previous self-financed films all did very well at the box office. Diminishing returns over time. Split did incredible. Knock at the Cabin Door ended up with around $60 million for its run. So basically all those movies were in the green, some of them very in the green, which we'll talk about with the Visit and Split and Glass. You know what I mean?
Yep.
You know, they're all in the green, and now Trap, I mean, some projections even had that movie up to $30-40 million of a budget. We never really 100% know.
I think that was just the hysteria because we were on a good run of the last 3 or 4 weeks of the box office. But I think like the reasonable expectation was like 20 million, and it slightly underperformed that.
I guess what I'm saying is I'm surprised.
Yeah. Well, because, but Knock at the Cabin Door though. This one for opening weekend, this one falls in between Knock at the Cabin Door and Old. So Knock at the Cabin Door did 14 million opening weekend.
Old came out during COVID.
Yeah,
and the whole thing about Old is it's his COVID movie. That's
such a good idea though. Old Beach.
Old Beach is amazing.
It's a classic opening.
I love Old
movie.
Beach. We'll talk about Old later. And it did actually very well, despite it coming out during COVID or being one of those early COVID movies back. I'm just, before we get into the celebration, it just is of interest that
disappointing. It's disappointing
because it has like a great sort of social media presence. The trailers that were cut instantly became memeable, and that's sort of a trend we've been following in our box office segment is when challengers can have that meme of Zendaya and the two boys about to kiss.
No, you're
it's
right.
really impactful. So I'm a little surprised that it did such soft numbers, especially because the screenings we went to were freaking packed.
They were packed.
You know, so
exciting.
it's a little strange. It's one of those things where he's not going to like lose his house because of this. He's going to break even, maybe more. I'm sure it'll do gangbusters when it goes on HBO
He'll live
Max
to fight
or
again,
whatever.
but it's not a
He'll
triumph.
live to fight again, but it's just not a financial triumph.
No.
We'll talk about whether it's a critical triumph at the end of our review of his filmography.
No, that's a good point, and I do think it probably just got sort of a little choked out by Deadpool and Wolverine Week 2, and another movie we haven't talked about yet, but Twisters is still hanging on and making big money. Like Twisters added another 23 million in its third week
to come in number 2. So Trap came in third.
That's right. So Twisters is closing in on 300 million worldwide. Currently, it's the 9th biggest movie of the year worldwide. So I think ultimately, you know, Trap sort of like falls right in between his previous 2 releases, and so it's sort of right in line with what he's been doing. But I think I was hoping for it to do better because of like what I thought was a really good marketing campaign.
I thought it was great.
It just got. And also, I think it got choked by these big. I think it got choked out by Deadpool and Wolverine and Twisters.
Right, and Josh Hartnett, who is culturally beloved, I hope this isn't the last we get to see of him making a meal out of a part. Right?
He's back.
I hope he's back. There's a way to look at these box office returns with a little fear as an M. Night lover, but he'll make 50 more movies. I'm just saying, interesting that this one didn't quite pop the way I thought it was going to. I mean, we were calling this entire summer Trap Summer, Brett.
I know.
Instead of Brat Summer. We really thought this was going to be it.
Well, listen, if you listen to this show,
that's just financials.
If you listen to the show, go see Trap. Tell your friends to go see Trap, okay? And it doesn't matter. You can like it, you can not like it, this and that. Go see it. Pay for it. Because these are the movies that we need to pay for. The Traps, the original IP, horror thrillers, the M. Night movies, the old school fucking the old school approach to Hollywood, not this fucking stranglehold of the franchises and the corporate hegemonies. Go see Trap if you haven't seen it yet in theaters, baby. Pay for this thing. Get on the record with it, okay?
We're going to hear your review later, but just in general, did you like it more than Deadpool and Wolverine?
Easily.
You liked it more than you like Deadpool and Wolverine?
Deadpool and Wolverine.
Because you love Deadpool and Wolverine.
I did
right?
not.
You did not.
Did
okay.
Did not.
You did not like Deadpool and
Wolverine.
Okay.
Watching it is just. If you're a movie lover, it's like watching your heart get ripped out in front of you and eaten in front of you. It's just a cynical rejection of what movies are supposed to be in favor of this sort of corporate fan service, which we'll talk about what that word means, I think, later in Basement Takes. Whereas Trap is literally a guy, like we said last week, sitting down and saying, what would be a good movie? I'm going to really try to make a good movie. And even if you don't like M. Night's movie, this is a guy trying to make good movies for audiences, not someone trying to exploit an audience who is addicted to a fucking comic book culture franchise fucking moment, okay? This is a guy who's trying to make good movies for audiences,
for adult
and we
audiences.
Need to respect that. Thank you. Now, going along with the box office, before we get into our big M. Night breakdown, we've got some news here because some studios right now are living pretty and some are in some dire straits. So, this year is a big, big year for Disney. Last year, you remember, Disney lost the top spot at the yearly box office to Universal for the first time in about a decade, I think. Because of course Disney we know is because Oppenheimer, Super Mario, and Fast X is what gave Universal the crown last year. And then Disney we know is used to having the box office crown because they include Pixar, Disney animated movies, Marvel movies,
Star Wars,
20th century movies, Lucasfilm, right? They have just this incredible sort of purchased catalog of movies they can pull from. So they're just used to naturally occupying the top spot of the box office. But last year they did not have the juice, and Universal got the spot. But now Disney is back because they're going to end the year with the top two movies of the year, Inside Out 2 and Deadpool and Wolverine. The only two remaining competitors are Moana 2, which is also a Disney movie, and Joker 2, which I don't think is gonna sort of, it's not gonna outdo Deadpool Wolverine. I can see it cracking the top 5 for the year, but getting into the top 2 is gonna be a hard climb. Now, studios that are having a bad time of it right now. First, Warner Brothers Discovery. Shares of Warner Brothers Discovery, which is, as you know, helmed by everyone's favorite guy, David Zaslav, fell sharply. This was just this morning. Warner Brothers Discovery shares are at an all-time low right now, an all-time low. And part of that is because of something that has nothing to do with movies, which is Warner Brothers Discovery includes the Turner imprints, and TNT just lost the NBA rights, right? So that's part of Warner Brothers Discovery. But the other big thing here is that Warner Brothers Discovery is just not really killing it in the movie game. They're not killing it anywhere. They are this big amorphous conglomerate of different entities with no fucking vision that seems to just be sort of bleeding. And they might be literally, they very well might be in line for another fucking corporate purchase or merger. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing that we see with so many of these big film conglomerates these days, is they are just floating in between mergers and acquisitions. There is no identity, there is no purpose, there is no direction. They just float from one purchase to another, and they get purchased and then they bomb out and then they sell at a slightly lower price, and the process continues and continues and continues. Because for all the money that David Zaslav pays himself, this guy is just a on paper failure. His company fucking has plummeted under his direction.
It has, but also he has been brought in to be a destruction artist.
Yes,
his corporate skill
yes.
is taking the company from a growth model to a husk to be sold and or have a loan taken out against. So I mean, obviously it's unappealing for us as movie and entertainment fans that he's in charge, but I'm afraid to report that I don't think he thinks he's failing. I think he thinks he's ripping fucking weeds out left and right, and it's a shame. It's just like that's what he's trying to do is fucking rip it up and sell.
And this is why this constant whirlwind of corporate mergers is a shocker bad thing for culture and for art, is because it ceases to be about the end game, which is the movie that goes into theaters or the TV show that ends up on your screens. And it starts to just be about what can we write off for, what movies can we sort of like write off for tax purposes, and how can we prepare ourselves for the next purchase or the next acquisition
or the next quarterly report.
Yes, you are not about
like even that.
You don't exist to make a product. You exist to make yourself sellable for the next acquisition.
Right. Increase the shareholders. Blah blah blah.
It's
blah.
very, very, very silly. These companies are too big. They are just like objectively too big. They can't manage themselves. Like Warner Brothers Discovery is just like plummeting in value because it's too big. It is a fucking blue whale in a swimming pool. It is too much for too little, and it can't focus on what it actually does. It just lost its NBA. Like that's easy money for like the fact that TNT lost NBA rights is fucking madness.
Zaslav went back and begged them to go back on the
bank.
Deal. Yeah, that was a bad one.
These companies are too big. They're too big. Yeah. Why is TNT part of this massive fucking giant? Why can't TNT just be TNT? Why can't Turner just be Turner? It's because this like ceaseless cycle of mergers and acquisitions is killing the entertainment industry.
It actually is monopolization across all. You know why the airport sucks or why your food is made out of poison? It all has to do with monopolization, and it's absolutely no different in the entertainment industry. Brett is 150% spot on, and you know what? It's not like this has been going on for so long. This is kind of this is accelerating with rapid pace over the past 15, 20 years because Brett, staying on theme for this episode, 25 years ago in 1999, these same companies that we're talking about were the ones giving the money to M. Night Shyamalan to take a risk on this young up-and-comer to make The Sixth Sense, which went on to gross $700 million worldwide, right? That's, in 1999, big studios were the ones putting out Magnolia, whatever, Virgin Suicides.
1999.
1999. The Matrix, right? This is what studios paying for. And now look at what Disney and these studios are putting out for us. It's a shame. But there are still some people holding that flame, staying on theme. It's M. Night. So I just always gotta bring it back to our guy.
Thank you. And look, these companies, Hollywood conglomerates, Silicon Valley, Wall Street, they always want to convince you that look, you don't get how it's actually done. You don't understand how business is done. It's more complicated. Everything's also complicated. We're the only ones that can do it. These people are fucking morons, okay? Here's what you need to understand. When you get told that it's too complicated for you to understand, here's example number one. David Zaslav inherited NBA on TNT. One of the most bankable, just simple. NBA has been on TNT since I was fucking 12. You don't want to know how old I am right now. That's at least 30 years, I'll tell you that, okay? NBA has been on TNT forever. It is like fucking water coming out of your faucet. That's a bad example, actually. It is
peanut butter and jelly.
It is peanut butter and jelly. It is just the simplest fucking equation. David Zaslav, Warner Brothers Discovery big conglomerate, they lost the NBA on TNT? That's like me shitting my pants on Lancashire Boulevard. That is like
I don't know.
That is just like public stupidity. And these people want to convince you that they are somehow sort of geniuses beyond the pale, and you just don't get the complexity of the thing. No.
They're really
These are fucking morons who want money more than anything, and it blinds them to the realities of the business that they work in. This is fucking nonsense that you lost the NBA on TNT.
This is reminding me. I want to run Warner Brothers, and I'll do it.
Let this guy do it.
I'll do it for half the price. You can take what you're paying Zaslav. I'll do it for half of that. That's my plea. No bullet points about why you should hire me.
There is an
just
amazing,
a plea.
I mean, this is 20 years ago, but there is an amazing part of William Goldman's Adventures in the Screen Trade where he's talks about the studio head position, and he's like, this is ostensibly the positions of power in Hollywood, but in fact it's only the losers want to be studio heads because no one lasts for more than 2 years because it's an impossible position and it only attracts morons.
It's like being the coach of the Lakers.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
yes.
right.
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
It's like, oh, I'm the coach of the Lakers. It's like, oh, honey, you're about to get shit on for 8 months and then fired.
And speaking of, not only another studio that's having a rough time lately is the old classic, one of the big five, Paramount, the only studio that still exists within the geographical boundaries of Hollywood over there on Melrose Boulevard. Paramount's been in trouble lately, and Paramount is in the middle of this They are finally sold to Skydance, which is one of the Ellisons. I mean, look it up. It's like
keep your billionaires straight.
Larry Ellison is basically the Bill Gates, right? He's a Silicon Valley billionaire,
Oracle, right?
And then all of his kids weirdly turned out to be cinephiles. So his daughter started Annapurna Pictures, which was thought it was going to be A24.
Annapurna's great.
The Annapurna's great. And then his other kid, which one? Fucking
Stinker.
Gene Ellison or Roger Ellison? What's the other Ellison? I thought I had his name here.
Phil
I can't
Ellison?
find it.
Who cares?
Whatever.
No.
The other Ellison kid who runs Skydance has been in the process of buying Paramount from the Redstone.
This guy's hot shit too. This guy's a huge deal.
Okay, so Paramount got bought by Skydance, which is basically an Ellison family company, but they're also in the middle of this ongoing cycle of layoffs. They've been laying off like 100 people every couple months. They have declining revenue. Paramount Plus is a disaster. They can't make any money. And, this is not new for Paramount. I mean, they went through this in the 1960s, but what was their solution in the 1960s? Well, they made The Godfather and Chinatown and Love Story and Rosemary's Baby, and then they were on top of the game. But right now, in the current situation of Hollywood, people never look to content as the solution. They never think, well, let's make good movies and then maybe we'll get out of this hole. No, you find some sucker to sell to and you lay off 100 employees every couple months and you hold off for the tax write-offs and just hope that all the numbers will work out at the end of the day. You don't think that, we should just make better movies. No. And in fact, not only is Paramount not making better movies, they're actually destroying the good movies they've already made. Joe, have you heard about this whole Interstellar controversy over at Paramount?
I have a little.
Okay.
I've heard this is and that's. I got a lot of distressed texts in my phone yesterday.
So here's what apparently happened. And all of this, no one is confessing to anything yet. So this is all just based on sort of like hearsay and like connecting the dots. But there was supposed to be Hollywood, and look, good for them. It's smart. They've fallen very in love with like re-releases. Movies are getting like any excuse.
Ponyo racked up $800K this weekend. We saw it on the box office.
20th anniversary, 25th anniversary, 10th anniversary.
Fucking
any
whatever,
excuse.
right.
Put a movie back in theaters, get an extra couple million from your catalog.
Great
I love it. Very smart. So Paramount had been gearing up for an Interstellar 70mm re-release in the fall. Right, so we're gonna put Interstellar, which has been like gaining a lot of traction as like a secretly like one of the great Nolan movies. It's starting to get this sort of like almost like cult status, like examination. So great, perfect idea. We're gonna bring it back into theaters, 70mm. We're gonna blow it out on a bunch of screens. It'll make like 10 million out of nothing, right? For nothing. Then there started to be this rumor that Paramount had destroyed all the 70mm prints of Interstellar accidentally. This was just a rumor, but then that rumor was quickly followed by Paramount indefinitely postponing all the 70mm screenings of Interstellar, and then another report that Christopher Nolan found out they destroyed all the prints and is like furious. So apparently Paramount, and this was not intentional, apparently Paramount like mistakenly destroyed all of their 70mm prints of Interstellar, and now everyone is in the process of like reaching out to like local movie theaters that got like, the only hope is that some local movie theaters who got original 70mm prints like saved them and preserved them.
Yes.
But Paramount, the studio who was responsible for these things, destroyed the prints apparently in some mistaken act.
Think about how funny that is, because it's not like they threw away a small little 16mm reel.
No.
The 70mm cut of Interstellar, I'm guessing right now, I know that the IMAX cut of Interstellar was so big that every single IMAX theater in the country had to get redesigned to have the plate be big enough to put Interstellar on. That's how long this movie is. So I have to imagine there's 6 to 10 fucking reels of 70 millimeter film for Interstellar. That must take up 8 to 10 to 12 feet of space, and they're probably in like big heavy locked cans that say Interstellar across from them. You can't throw them away. They're incredibly expensive to make. They're a huge piece of the distribution part for this part of the company in a couple months. What do you think actually happened?
Here's what I think happened based on a previous example, because I read every article possible about this, trying to get to the bottom of, did this happen and why did it happen? And it definitely happened. But they haven't they're all clearly behind the scenes scrambling right now, which is why they haven't come out with an explanation or a statement, because they're all trying to figure out a solution right now. But why I think this definitely happened is because this is not the first time this has happened. In 1991, Paramount destroyed every 70 millimeter print of Terrence Malick's Days of Heaven, right? Which is,
why would they do that?
I would say, I love Badlands. I think Days of Heaven is his best movie.
It's the most beautiful thing ever put.
It's
on
the most
film.
beautiful movie ever
right,
made.
Right.
It's shot entirely at the golden hour. It's an impossible movie. It's so good. They destroyed every 70 millimeter print of Terrence Malick's Days of Heaven, and the story goes that it was a mistake because Paramount employees misread a memo calling for excess 70 millimeter prints of Days of Thunder to be liquidated. So they got a print that says, we need you to get rid of the 70 millimeter prints of Days of Thunder. Also kind of a tragedy.
Yeah, don't do that either. Don't
Just
get rid of any of them.
Locker.
If the prints are completely
and
totally
fucked
up,
get rid of them.
Otherwise, just send them to the big giant cold warehouse where you put all the movies in. Okay, wait. So what movie sounds like Interstellar that they thought it was going to be? Okay, everyone, delete. What was the name of that Johnny Depp movie where he's in the computer?
Transcendence.
They
thought
Transcendence.
Yeah, which makes it. That's the only movie that you can delete the 70 millimeter.
Why would they make a 70 millimeter print of Transcendence though? There's no way. There's no way they had those when that movie came out.
Space. I mean, there's some options here.
Oh my god, that's so funny.
So apparently,
how many theaters were they going out to? There had to have been at least 60, 80 prints there, and now we just have to hope and pray that one of them sitting in the basement at the AMC in Burbank. Now, they didn't destroy the negatives. I guess they could go make more 70 millimeter prints of Interstellar, but the whole financial calculus is now busted because they're okay, it's going to cost all this money to print these 70 millimeter prints, distribute them. Now we got to redo it. Now it's not even fucking worth it anymore. Although I'll pay double to go see Interstellar on 70 millimeter, not because I'm a fanboy, but because I actually didn't love it when I first saw it in the movie theater. And I'm so ready to revisit that movie because, as you folks know, I do love me a good Nolan. So I would love for Interstellar to be great, but I won't be seeing it this year on 70 millimeter, Brett. That's okay. God bless the intern that, flipped the truck over, that held all the fucking reels or whatever the hell happened over there.
It reminds me of, there's this great story about how Walt Whitman, the poet Walt Whitman, donated his brain to the University of Pennsylvania when he died. He donated his brain to the Neurological Institute at the University of Pennsylvania because they were doing this thing. They asked for it. He didn't just offer it, but they were doing this thing where they were going to study the brains of geniuses. And look, it all smacks a little bit of eugenics. I'm not in favor of it, but they were going to study the brains of geniuses to see what made them tick and see if they could figure out some sort of neurological explanation for genius. And so Walt Whitman donated his brain to the University of Pennsylvania, but then there's this story that a intern who was working at the University of Pennsylvania was supposed to transport Walt Whitman's brain from point A to point B in order to get it studied. And halfway there, he dropped Walt Whitman's brain on the ground, and the glass shattered, and Walt Whitman's brain was splayed all over the floor and was destroyed. It was not usable. And then they weren't able to actually study his brain for science because this intern dropped Walt Whitman's brain on the ground.
He didn't pull a young Frankenstein.
No.
Do a little switcheroo.
No, he dropped Walt Whitman's brain on the ground and was destroyed and never usable. And honestly, I say great, because what are we doing?
Good.
What is this fucking bullshit about?
Good.
Let's find out what makes geniuses tick, so that we can fucking
sell it.
Yeah, and then
put it in a pill and sell it.
Yeah, great idea. I
Brett's
say
anti-science.
I say that intern is a hero. He's anti-eugenics. He did it on purpose, and I support that person. Now, one more thing before we get into M. Night's filmography here. We got to talk about this story with. I mean, there's a greater reckoning about Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson that needs to happen. But let's start it here, because there's this story that came out this week, and it did not surprise me at all, about how Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is now in a sort of legal dispute with the United States military over this promotional marketing package that was agreed upon and was not fulfilled, apparently. So here's what happened. Let me give you the facts. The United States military made a marketing deal with the United States, with the UFL, the United States Football League, which Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is a partner in and the face of. It's a sort of competitor to the NFL. They've been trying to do this forever. Every 10, 20 years, they try to create a competitor to the NFL. And so the United States military was like a marketing partner. They partner with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and the UFL. And The Rock had to do like 3 or 4 social media posts, right, about the military, about the United States military, and he was going to get paid $1 million per social media post. The only reason we know about this is because apparently Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson did not fulfill this agreement. He did not do enough social media posts. And so now the United States military is suing him, or is at least sort of like contesting the arrangement, trying to sort of get some of their money back because they did not get what they received. Now, this is all a silly little nothing story, except for a couple things that I think are very important to talk about. Number one, this is one of those stories where we've all accepted the dystopian realities of 21st century America, but this is one of those stories that like really reinforces the like specifics of this dystopian reality, which is that let's look at how this breaks down. So I see commercials for the military. I get it. I understand like that the United States military has a marketing department, and they have a marketing budget, and they buy ad spots like any product buys ad spots. I guess what I had not fully considered was something that they brought up about this whole Rock thing is that recruitment to the military went down. Like The Rock's participation in this did not increase recruitment for the military. Like the military had like a net negative of like 30 in terms of recruitment. And they were hoping that getting The Rock and the UFL on board was going to get a lot of people signing up to be in the Army and the Marines and the Navy and whatever. And that did not happen. And so what that made me realize, which I guess I had never really fully considered, was that when we get an ad buy for our network from like, let's say HelloFresh, right?
Sure.
Meal kit service, right?
Classic podcast advertiser.
They buy a couple test spots on a couple shows, and then you have a promo code, right?
Sure. Promo code
movies baby, whatever, right? You've heard it 100 times. And then that ad partner is going to contact you in 3 months and say, okay, so this podcast resulted in 4 new customers for us because we're tracking.
They used the promo code,
right?
And we can attribute your ad to somebody buying our product, and it crossed 10 times, which means we've made money more than we spent on your buy. We'll continue to buy advertising. It's called a conversion. When you like successfully convert listeners to buy the product.
That's right. Now, what I somehow did not take into consideration was that the United States military is operating the exact same way. That when they do an ad buy, in this case, they bought advertising with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. You're going to promote us 4 times on your social media. The United States Football League is going to do sort of tie-ins or commercials or whatever. The United States military is saying, when we spend this amount of money, we expect to get 100 new soldiers in the military. Right? Whereas HelloFresh is expecting, like, we want 100 new people buying meal kits. The United States military is saying, we want 100 physical bodies
fresh bodies
to be in the military.
Yeah,
right?
Dark.
And they did not get that. And in fact, they got the opposite of that. They actually slowly declined.
So The Rock did a good thing.
No.
Okay.
The Rock.
So The Rock destroyed the military from the inside.
That's very generous. No.
Okay.
In fact, The Rock is just happy to cash in on anything, including military recruitment, but he's too busy to really pay any attention to it, and so he didn't fulfill his obligations. And because recruitment went down, which recruitment has been going down for years, they're saying, like, The Rock is your fault. You didn't do enough social media posts. We don't have enough bodies in the military.
The military's like, we got to sue you so we can get some more money.
Yes.
That is, hey.
So what we have here, the reason I bring this up is a couple things. Number one, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is an absolute fucking hack. He is an opportunist. He will market for the military industrial complex, for the American military. He loves just showing off all his big guns. He loves fucking playing fast and loose with politics. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is a coward who just wants to be a rich, wealthy star by any means necessary, promoting whatever he has to do without any fucking integrity or conviction. And I don't want you, all you little simps online, don't you dare send me pictures of him like posing with like child cancer patients, because guess what? That is the bare fucking minimum. Oh my God, he was nice to a kid with cancer. What a great guy. No, behind the scenes, these people are accumulating capital and power and influence by any fucking means necessary, and that includes simping for the military, but also like not doing it even well enough to live up to the military's standards. So Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson made a marketing agreement with the United States military, and the way they're evaluating the success of it is if enough people sign up, if enough fucking suckers sign up for the United States military circa 2024, then Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson gets to keep his marketing agreement with the United States military. This is fucking dark shit, people, and Dwayne is at the center of it. I'm sick of this guy. I'm sick of this fucking fraud. Fuck this guy. You want to talk about M. Night Shyamalan?
Yes.
All right, good. All right.
We are vibe shift.
Dude, vibe. Big vibe shift. Also, Google. We didn't even get to the tip of the iceberg. Google Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, United States military, advertising lawsuit, whatever. You'll find it. Read up on this. It's fucked up. That guy sucks. All right. M. Night Shyamalan. That's the reason we've come together. It's the reason we've come together tonight.
That's right.
It's the reason we've assembled. Because this is maybe the most important task ever presented to us, Joe.
Yes.
Is to like, and I think a lot of you already agree with us, but I also know there's a lot of you out there who are just like out on M. Night, or just think he's like sort of,
or one foot in, one foot out.
1 foot in, 1 foot. We want tonight. And this is honesty. This is based on us watching literally every M. Night movie over the last 2 weeks, studying the filmography, putting a lot of thought into this. I want to make an argument for M. Night as one of the essential American auteurs of the last 20, 30 years in cinema. Are you on board with that?
You want to make the argument that he's one of the greatest auteurs in cinema of the past 20 and 30 years?
I think he is underappreciated. I think he's underrated. I think he is, in many ways, like represents one of the last, is in many ways one of the last great filmmakers out there. I think he has so much going for him. There's so much that's interesting about him, so much that's pure about him, so much that needs to be applauded. And like, I'm big on M. Night right now.
You should be. We all should be. Because M. Night has had an interesting ride. Do you want to go into the ride?
Yes.
Start with the ride, and then we'll get to our movies.
Let's do this.
Why
Let's
we
do
love
this.
him.
I'm going to give you because I also don't want to like overly bias this. So let's just go let's just look at the facts first. Let's just go through the filmography, talk about the progress of the career, and then we're going to get into movie by movie what our favorites are, what we think the top 5 are. M. Night Shyamalan, the director of 15 feature films since 1998, the cumulative gross of his movies just hit with Trap, just hit 3.5 billion globally. This guy is responsible for 3.5 billion in global box office over these 15 movies. This is a massive, massive fucking.
And that's not just because of The Sixth Sense.
No.
Like you think, oh, it must be half Sixth Sense.
Nope.
No, it's not. It's 20%.
Massive filmmaker. This guy has worked with Disney, Paramount, Sony, Universal, and Warner Brothers. If you're keeping track, those are the 5 majors. He has also worked with multiple imprints and indies, Miramax, Touchstone, Blumhouse, etc. I did not have time to fact check this, but I am begging anyone to follow up with me on this. Is there another director, another working American director who has worked with all 5 major studios? I really doubt that there is. This guy has worked with everybody. He's been around. And the reason he's been around is because he refuses to compromise his integrity. He refuses to compromise his vision. But he is also a fucking player. He's also someone who considers the financial aspects of movies, the audience, etc. He is the perfect middle ground in what is required to be a filmmaker, where he understands the financials and the demographics, but he also wants to make the movie that he wants to make at all costs. And in addition to working with these studios, he has also created his own production company, Blinding Edge, which allows him to just live and work out of Philadelphia. This guy doesn't even live in fucking Hollywood. This guy makes all of his movies outside of the industry, outside of Hollywood, in suburban Philadelphia. He's headquartered in Berwyn, PA. He's a fucking mainline motherfucker till he dies. He built his own production company there, and he is living the fucking dream, but also is on the tightrope with every movie because,
that's the dream.
It's the dream, right? It's the cost of living outside the industry, but the pleasure of living outside the industry is every movie has to fucking work. Because the second this guy has a Heaven's Gate or a Cutthroat Island or a Hudson Hawk, he's fucked. He's out. So every movie is a battle for survival with this guy, and I love that. He knows it. It's the wager that he committed to and that he lives up to. Now, when we talk about the trajectory of M. Night Shyamalan, we have to start from the beginning. And Mario, can we see that M. Night Shyamalan filmography sort of overview? There it is. So now, early 90s. This guy, and I mean, M. Night Shyamalan is the kid from Super 8. He is Dawson from Dawson's Creek. This guy was making Super 8 movies as a kid. He had Spielberg posters on his wall. He had a Jaws poster on his wall. This guy wanted to be a big Hollywood filmmaker from the beginning. But his journey is a much more interesting, nuanced journey through Hollywood filmmaking than just becoming the next Spielberg. And it starts with, pre-Sixth Sense. Pre-Sixth Sense, he made a movie called Wide Awake that was like a family comedy. At this time, he also wrote the script for Stuart Little, which was a big hit. He ghost wrote She's All That. So he was like pre-Sixth Sense. He is trying to find his place in the studios, but he's not like he wasn't like horror or nothing guy. I mean, he was trying to find his place. He was trying to find where he fit in. And then, of course, he has his big breakout with The Sixth Sense in 1999, which, in addition, I think, to being just a masterpiece of like horror filmmaking, you cannot underestimate the financial and cultural impact of this movie. This movie came out in 1999, which, as we've discussed in our Weekend at Bergman series, is arguably the best movie year ever. There are the multitude of great movies that came out in 1999 is overwhelming. And The Sixth Sense was the most financially successful movie of the year besides Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. Think about all those movies that came out in 1999, all those fucking classics, from The Matrix to American Beauty to like there are so many just
massive
big
movies.
Fucking swings. And then M. Night's little personal original IP horror movie is the biggest movie of the biggest movie year besides Star Wars Episode 1, which you almost can't even count. Yeah, because it's like, well, that's the most highly anticipated movie of all time. Right. So there's no and
it's amazing, Brett. The movie got nominated for Best Picture.
Yep,
he was nominated for Best Director.
Yep.
And on a $40 million budget, The Sixth Sense left with $673 million of box office. I mean, so out of the gate, you cannot have a better. I know this isn't his first feature, but you can't have a better coming out party in Hollywood with the blend of creative and financial success as The Sixth Sense. So this put him in not kind of the conversation. This is when they started calling him the next Spielberg.
Yep, which was the goal all along. I mean, he always wanted to be the next Spielberg, and it was. I mean, to put it another way, The Sixth Sense was the most profitable horror movie of all time until 2017 with that first It remake. So The Sixth Sense is currently the second highest box office horror movie of all time behind the It remake. But it held that crown for 18 years. I mean, and this is
we hit it on Bergman's. It was a cultural phenomenon.
Yes, phenomenon.
Things that I See Dead People, the whole kit and caboodle. There was no social media when this came out. There was barely the internet. So the mystery of the movie and the twist and the tone, it was all new and fresh and exciting when you got to the theater. People loved going on an M. Night ride with all of its nice character building and all of its delightful twists and turns. And The Sixth Sense stars, big-time movie star Bruce Willis doing some seriously great, compassionate, emotional acting. Toni Collette gives a dynamite performance. Brett, I believe you said that Haley Joel Osment gave your favorite
up until Janet Planet, my famous child actor performance.
Your favorite child actor performance ever. Tonally specific and sincere. In 1999, a lot of our great American filmmakers were getting a lot of money to work in their full creative capacities, but very few directors that we engaged with in 1999 brought as much of the sincerity, empathy, compassion, and gracefulness that Shyamalan brings to this horror movie than some of the sort of extraness of the Magnolias or pick your 1999 Poison. And this sort of tonal dialectic. Oh my God, I'm really on my own. I'm really sorry, folks. I'm really on one tonight. But this sort of tonal conversation between horror and earnest sentimentality is the needle that M. Night will thread for the remainder of his career.
Yep.
And it will cause a lot of question marks in people. It'll cause a lot of confusion because nobody really oscillates tonally between horror, comedy, and family romance, like a love, compassion sort of element like M. Night does. And Sixth Sense is maybe, I don't know what the right way to say it is, Brett, but like the purest distillation of those Shyamalan elements.
Yeah. And that's why I think, Hollywood tries to simplify everything and sort of be reductive about everything. So Hollywood saw Sixth Sense and said, okay, now you're the guy who does the the PG-13 horror movies with a big twist at the end. Whereas I don't think that's what he was doing. I think what M. Night found in The Sixth Sense was not just horror, but was, like you're saying, this sort of way of combining horror with like thematic elements and sort of this sort of like sadness and mournfulness and this sort of like he found like a tone that transcends horror, right? He found something in The Sixth Sense that would become the rest of his career.
It's borderline spirituality,
but all
which is
Hollywood
another huge
saw was
theme
like,
through
okay,
his films.
now you're the guy that does the horror movies with the twist, and we need 8 more of those, and then we're gonna throw you to the curb.
That's right. But hold on, I gotta jump in. I'm so sorry. So that's so true. Like they're like, this is what happened. They go, and this is the story we're about to tell. They go, you're the guy with the twists at the end.
Yeah.
And he does it begrudgingly and he does it a little bit. And then he like pouts and crosses his arms and says, no, no, no. And he finds freedom later in his career when he says, holy shit, and he realizes the beautiful inverse other side of the coin, which is I'm the guy that makes the twists.
Yes.
Like he has like, he's in his 20s when The Sixth Sense comes out, and he has a very youthful response. It's like when the band doesn't want to play their hit at the concert because they played it a million times. It's like, honey, just play Creep.
Yeah.
You know, play, you know what I mean?
I respect it though,
he comes back later in his career after he sort of bottoms out, and he says, you know what? As much as what I just said is true, where I'm blending these tonal shifts between horror and sentimentality, I also have this knack for narrative storytelling and this knack for twists, turns, tricks, and spoofs and goofs, which he really relies on, and beautifully so, throughout his past 6-7 films.
Yeah, I think the big thing with M. Night that I love is that he just doesn't want to do anything cheaply or anything perfunctorily. That he's fine with twists and with doing Sixth Sense style movies, but that can't be. He doesn't start out from that premise of like, okay, I have to do another twist movie. M. Night always starts out with like, what's the next movie I want to do? What's the next story I want to tell? And so I think as his career has developed, he's sort of become comfortable with the twist as just a tool that he is good at employing. But he wasn't just going to give Hollywood 8 more Sixth Senses, 8 more big twist movies, and then call it a day because he wanted to be successful. This is a guy for whom the movie and the art comes first, but the commerce and the audience is a very close second. It's a very close second. He's not unaware of that. He's not on an island, but he is a guy who needs to feel confident in the movies he's making and needs to feel a conviction in the movies that he's making and needs to be able to make them in the way that he wants to make them. And the case point here is, if we look at the second phase of that filmography trajectory, Margot, what I've called his new Spielberg phase, which is a little sort of like in quotations, because after The Sixth Sense, there's a lot of pressures on him. He wants to be the next Spielberg. He wants to be making, this is the guy who
he's on the cover of what was it, Esquire or Rolling Stone as the next Spielberg.
And he had a Jaws poster on his wall as a kid. And when he was at Tisch, he said everyone else was into Godard, and I was walking around with the Rares of the Lost Ark hat on the whole time. This is the guy who has always known that he wants to be the big populist cultural phenomenon filmmaker, but still with like meaning and artistry, and Spielberg is the best example of that. And so his version of being the new Spielberg is very, very interesting, because it simultaneously sort of replicates the formula of Sixth Sense and tries to kind of like go beyond it. So the next phase is Unbreakable in 2000, Signs in 2002, and The Village in 2004. And again, we're going to review these movies a little later. I just want to give the facts now. Okay. All of these movies were very financially successful. They were not, they were not as successful as The Sixth Sense, but that was like a unicorn. He got into a mode with like these three where the movies all cost, almost by the book, they all cost around 70, 80 million, and they all made like 200, 300, 400 million dollars. So he got into a nice little groove here with some successful movies, but oh my God, we're going to talk about these later. What like sort of variety and weirdness between Unbreakable, Signs, and The Village. Just an incredible run of 3 truly sort of unique, bizarre, interesting movies that smartly, like, they play off of his Sixth Sense reputation enough. They are signature Shyamalan movies, but they are not, starting with Unbreakable, they are not like, he's not afraid to be sort of like slow and patient and atmospheric and a little weird and a little singular. Like, he is not just trying to sort of imitate the Sixth Sense. He's trying to build off of the Sixth Sense.
In Unbreakable, Shyamalan is almost running away from the Sixth Sense.
Yeah.
The reason in his filmmaking, all of a sudden, first of all, the Unbreakable has the least amount of cuts in any of Shyamalan's filmmaking. He wants this thing shot wide. He wants long takes. He wants it to be atmospheric. He's trying to be Antonioni doing a superhero movie. There's only 400 cuts in Unbreakable. There can be 400 cuts in an action scene. Trap, has the most cuts. I think there's a bajillion cuts, whatever, in Trap. So it is so sparse. It is so pared back, Unbreakable is. And it sort of is the beginning of superhero movies, Brett, which they didn't want to market it as a superhero movie. They wanted to market Unbreakable as like a thriller a la Sixth Sense, which they did, but they weren't. No one was ready for superheroes, and no one was double ready for what Shyamalan was already doing, which was, what if superheroes were gritty, real, and sad? You know what I mean? He was on that. He was on both those trains way early. The movie. Apparently, he cried in his bed when the box office returns came out because it only made $250 million on a $75 million budget, which wasn't up to Sixth Sense expectations. But it's amazing that he is the new Spielberg, and he has that in your 20s impulse to resist and go, look at how cinematic and how wide and slow and patient and brilliant I can be. And unfortunately, though it was a bit of a, I guess snotty is not a good word, but a bit of a fuck you 20-year-old move, it works out. Unbreakable is a good movie. Some people absolutely love Unbreakable. Do you want to talk about?
Yeah, let's go. Because
sorry, do you want to go? We want to go through the whole timeline, and I'm
really quickly.
You're
doing great. You're doing great though. Because
I can't want to talk about all these movies.
No, and we're gonna go through and rate all these in a second. But just the facts. So after that incredible run of Unbreakable, Signs, and The Village, everyone knows we then get into the sort of the so-called, we'll decide if this is actually true or not, but the so-called low point of Shyamalan's career starts with his two big bombs, Lady in the Water and The Happening, and then he has to just become sort of a studio gun for hire, like we saw with, the same thing happened to Guy Ritchie, and then he goes and does The Last Airbender and After Earth. And so these four movies together are like his low point creatively, financially. You also I've called these like the Razzies era of Shyamalan. This is when this guy went from being collectively, thought of as sort of the new Spielberg into the just the guy who makes bad movies. The punchline, yeah. I mean, all four of these movies were, multiple Razzie nominations, big punchlines, jokes, et cetera, et cetera. We'll go through and sort of evaluate the extent to which that's actually true now with some distance. But this is the point where culturally Shyamalan became the sort of Shyamalan joke, where he became the this guy is lost his touch. He was just, it's been a slow decline since The Sixth Sense, blah, 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 blah. And part of this, though, I think that went unreported at the time was Shyamalan trying to maintain his independence as a filmmaker and maintain the ability to do the movies that he wanted to do and not just slot into become some sort of studio hack. Because with Lady in the Water, he had been working with Disney and Disney subsidiaries all throughout his new Spielberg phase. And then for Lady in the Water, Disney started suggesting major sort of changes and corrections to the screenplay. And he had no interest in that sort of relationship. And so he cut ties with Disney and then took Lady in the Water over to Warner Brothers. And then with The Happening, he eventually did that with 20th Century Fox. So this is when he starts sort of bouncing around trying to find a new home because he was not interested in any sort of corporate oversight that was going to compromise his vision. And you could say, well, the movies did terrible, so the studios were right. But I would say that's wrong because you have to look at M. Night's career as a totality. Directors need to be allowed. I mean, everybody thought if you look at Martin Scorsese's career in the 80s before Goodfellas, it's the exact same thing. He was bouncing around between studios. No one wanted to fund his projects. Everyone thought he was done and over with and cooked before he came up with Goodfellas. This is just what happens with auteurs. They have little lulls in term. Not everyone can be on the pulse of the culture all the time, but that doesn't mean that you take away their creative independence and then just resign them to just nothing fucking hack projects.
And they didn't. To be fair, when you've just made that run, Unbreakable, Signs, The Village, and you get the script for Lady in the Water. It is a tonal shift that might not work well, and the studio was right. It was a $70 million movie that made $73 million and was critically, abhorred. The Happening had one of his famous good marketing strategies, and that one made quite a bit of money, though was a critical disaster.
That's the irony of The Happening is everyone remembers the critical panning of it. It made its money back.
Made a ton of money. Yeah. Last Airbender and After Earth made a ton of money, Brett. Like the money thing is totally fine. But
the vibe was the magic
Lady in the Water,
lost.
they kicked him out because that was stunk. And then they kicked him out after Lady in the Water because that movie it was the only movie that didn't really make money. And then The Happening made money, but like that got so critically panned that he had to go do somebody else's IP. He was like, maybe I need to go shake it up, and he went and did Last Airbender. I guess what I'm saying is, studio, he became sort of a free agent because once he got in the right system, studios knew he could do a great job, but critically slipping Lady in the Water, The Happening, and then people hated those movies, and then Airbender and After Earth was nothing. So he was done. He was dead. He was over in 2013, Brett.
So cut to 2013, 2014. He is dead in the water. He has had his last two original IP movies were stinkers critically. Then he did 2 studio movies that made money but were critically stinkers. The M. Night brand was as low as it could possibly be in 2013, 2014. And so he makes this guy. This is where this guy becomes one of my favorite directors, at least contemporary directors, is he doesn't just say, okay, fine, now I'm just a studio director. I just hire me to make your movies. At least I had my run. No, he says it's either all in or all out. And he makes a wager. And he decides, he writes an original horror script called The Visit. And no one, based on the sort of critical panning of his previous 4 movies, no studio will give him money for this movie. So he says, okay, I'm going to finance it myself. This guy, he does what Kevin Costner did with Horizon. He did what Francis Ford Coppola has done with Megalopolis. He pays for this movie entirely by himself. It cost about $5 million to make. He did another mortgage. He borrowed against his home. This guy literally bet his entire life on The Visit. And he finally found a home for this movie with Universal and Blumhouse. And Blumhouse, I think, is sort of a critical, they didn't really have anything creatively to do with the M. Night resurgence, but financially and just in terms of production support, they were there at a time when he needed support.
They saw the vision.
Yes. And so I think, Blumhouse gets credit for a lot of things. I think they should get credit for the M. Night resurgence a little bit, as being part of it, as being like a contributing partner to it.
Totally. It's like when Monkey Paw stole or saved Monkey Man from the clutches of Netflix and saw the value there. M. Night, Brett, he shot The Visit with the $5 million independently. He flew to Hollywood. He showed it to everybody in town.
Yep. Nobody wanted to buy it.
Nobody wanted it. He went back. He still to this day has a list. He has one of these lists. He's one of these guys. A list of everybody who said no to him on the first round of The Visit up on the wall. And he sort of just sits there and he says that he waits for them all to not be in the business anymore. And he just crosses them off the list. That's the kind of guy we're dealing with, Mamba mentality.
I love it.
Anyway, he went back home. He cut The Visit as a comedy. He cut The Visit as a thriller.
He cut 4 different versions.
Yeah, he was different versions. Okay, the thriller, I think that's it. He showed it to Jason Blum. They figured it out. They finished the movie. They put it out, Brett. What happened? How'd it go?
It brought him back from the dead.
Bang.
It brought him back from the dead. The Visit is an incredible, tight, fun, scary horror movie.
Yep, 90-minute.
As we'll talk about later on, it's his purest horror movie. It's his scariest movie. And it just fully brought him back from the dead. And then after, and the thing is, a guy like M. Night, he's got 5 scripts he's got 5, when the tide turns, this guy's ready to strike. He's already got 5 scripts ready to go when the tide turns. So The Visit brought him back from the dead, and then he got back in his bag in a hurry. He did 2 sequels to Unbreakable, Split and Glass. He did...
and Split was a secret sequel.
Yes. That's right. You don't find out till
Talk
the very
about
end.
guts. Like nobody knew it was. It made a ton of money. Split. So The Visit, Brett, made $98 million on a $5 million budget. Split made $279 million on a $9 million budget.
He's back.
Again, he used the money he made on The Visit to pay for Split. He paid $9 million to make it. Then the mother effer himself makes $279 million self-financing that baby. The next year, okay, so he's back with a vengeance. Then he hits up Samuel L. Jackson again for the third of the trilogy. Again, Split. Just marketed as a great James McAvoy performance and an M. Night Shyamalan movie. At the end, it's a secret fucking sequel to his massive hit Unbreakable. Then Glass completes the trilogy and makes a boatload of money.
At this point, too, despite the success of these movies, he is still self-financing all of these movies now out of the gate.
Yes.
Which is an incredible fucking risk to take.
It's amazing.
And yet he keeps fucking paying off on the risk.
He keeps winning.
Yes. So
Glass was made for $20 million.
Back in his bag
$250
with
million.
Split and Glass, and then Old, everybody's favorite airplane movie, Old.
Yeah.
All about, and now he's into this sort of like resurgent B movie era that he's in, with just like fun original concepts. Old, and then we're going to talk about Trap. We're going to talk about he produced his daughter's movie The Watchers, and I know some of these are based on books, The Watchers and Old, but just like
and Knock at the Cabin Door.
Yes, Knock on the Cabin Door. Thank you. But M. Night was, you forget how dead M. Night was, and then to come back from that is such a testament to just his creativity, his originality, and his tenacity to get original movies still made in Hollywood outside of the traditional Hollywood system. But guess what? Hollywood keeps coming and calling for him because these movies make money and they have an audience. So Joe, what we're going to do, okay, this is going to be very tricky, but what I want to do is we are going to narrow down our top 5 M. Night Shyamalan movies of all time. And the way I think we should do this is go through chronologically.
Okay.
And you're going to tell me sort of where these movies rank. Mm-hmm. And then collectively between the two of us, mm-hmm. we're going to figure out what our top 5 M. Night Shyamalan movies of all time are. And this is going to be very tricky because I think I've listed, I listed my top 10, and I think any of these 10 are worthy of being in the top 5. So this is going to be very, very competitive, very difficult. Okay. But let's just go through here. Okay. So 1998, family drama, Wide Awake, with Rosie O'Donnell. It gets fucked up by Harvey Weinstein. Finally gets released in 98. No shade, I do not have this in my top 10.
No.
It's just he's not M. Night yet. He's
Nope.
figuring it out. He's working on a big studio movie.
It's a cool little curiosity for the completionists out there, but no, it's not going to be in the top 5 M. Nights.
Not in my top, not my top 10 or 5. Okay.
No, nor I.
Okay, the big breakout, Sixth Sense in 1999, absolute fucking masterpiece. I argued this on Weekend at Bergman's. I'll say it again now. The thing that doesn't get said enough about Sixth Sense is that movie is better when you know the twist. It is not just some sort of like oddity horror movie with a fun twist. It is a fascinating study of trauma and sadness and mortality, and that movie is better when you know the twist because it transforms from just being a sort of shock horror movie into this incredible elegy of a horror movie. I love The Sixth Sense, and I have it in my top 5. I have it at number 3 overall of M. Night Shyamalan movies. What do you think about The Sixth Sense, Joe?
Love The Sixth Sense. Amazing movie. I spoke a little bit about it earlier, so I'll just let you know, Brett, that on my top 10 list, The Sixth Sense is 5.
5?
It is my 5th favorite, but it's certainly in the top 5, but it is my 5th favorite. No shade at all. But there are some things that I like that he grows to do later in his career that I enjoy more, but no one's gonna tell you, no, I don't think Sixth Sense is gonna be in top 5 M. Night movies. Like,
you have
that's
it
a little
5.
Silly. I do have it at 5, but I don't have it at 6 though. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I have it in my top 5.
You have it in top 5. Okay. So should we roughly just put it at 4 then and split the difference?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. We'll put it at 4 for now. Maybe that'll change.
Okay. 6 cents on the board.
That's crazy. People right now are saying, what could possibly be
Well, look, we could do the list, and then we can stare at it, and Brett can give an impassioned speech about, why we're crazy. But right now, as we go through, it feels like 4. Brett had it at 3. I had it at 5.
Okay. Next up is Unbreakable. His moody, atmospheric, meta journey through comic books 8 years before Iron Man came out. A theme that we're going to be looking at is M. Night. One of the most underrated things about M. Night. I think there's this thing, this impression of him as being like a little corny or a little like his decline happened because he just sort of got a little out of the culture and a little corny. M. Night is so far ahead of cultural trends, it's kind of shocking. He's making Unbreakable, this sort of like big meta movie about comic books and comic book culture 8 years before the MCU gets started. He's making The Village, this incredible resurgence of folk horror, a decade before The Witch and Midsummer, okay? M. Night, if anything, is ahead of cultural trends, not behind them. What do you think, though, of Unbreakable? Where does that fall for you?
Unbreakable for me is like 7, 8. It's not in my favorites, but it's certainly a good movie. I think I like spunkier, funkier, poppier M. Night more as a general trend than Unbreakable, but there's no doubt that Unbreakable is full of, some things we'll always associate with M. Night, sort of, the sentimental character development as well as the beautiful, aching film, cinematography. So, good movie, but it's not going to be in my top 5, Brett. Where do you have Unbreakable?
I agree. I have it at 7. I don't have it in my top 5. I think it's a gorgeous, original, bizarre, interesting movie. I just think it feels a little. It feels like it's like a very hard reaction to Sixth Sense of not trying to be the Sixth Sense director, and I like the instinct there. But often like when you're sort of reacting against trying not to be a certain way, the movie suffers a little bit, and so I think he's sort of like kneecapping himself in unnecessary ways where it's like, dude, you're very good at tension. There's no reason for you not to have more tension.
He utilizes a specific sliver of his skill set to full effect, but ignores all these other beautiful things that he can do. So that's kind of why Unbreakable is lower on my list.
It's just a little, when you watch them all, I mean, like in isolation, it's a beautiful singular movie. When you do what Joe and I did, which is like watch every M. Night Shyamalan movie back to back to back for 2 weeks, it's just not as interesting as the rest.
The man makes a lot of good movies. We're not saying it's a successful movie. I think he succeeds in what he's trying to do, and I think it's a good movie. If you popped it in right now, you'd enjoy it. I'm just trying to make a top 5, baby.
Yep, I have it right outside the top 5. Definitely top 10, but right outside the top 5. Okay, let's talk about Signs, which, as viewers of Weekend at Bergman's will know, we are not allowed to rewatch because we picked. We said that it was not as good as Jordan Peele's Nope, which I think I stand by.
I think it's hard in this moment of celebrating M. Night. It's hard to remember that. I think when we look, the thing about Bergman's, our other podcast that you can check out on our Patreon,
and we'll be back very soon.
You gotta kind of trust your Bergmans, because on Bergman's, I watch them back to back, and then I just shoot from the hip and tell you which one I like better. And Nope won, but Nope is an amazing film. And so
Signs is an amazing film too.
Signs, I have 3. My 3rd favorite M. Night movie.
Signs, you have it 3.
I love it. Here's some things I love about it.
Yeah.
First of all, fucking scary. Everybody's on board with that, right? When that alien walks across the thing, it is the first instance of the perfect M. Night scare, where it's so simple that you and me could try all day long and never accomplish it.
Yeah.
It's like one of those works of art people point to and say, my kid could do that. It's like an alien walks across the shaky camera feed, of the news footage, and it is terrifying to its core. It's iconic. We could try all day to replicate the simple, fundamentals of shooting and editing that scene, and we would come up short. I love the scares in it. I love the way that it builds so slowly, and sort of what we're dealing with isn't revealed till sort of later. I love the themes of religion. Mel Gibson plays a priest who's finding his faith during an alien invasion. I mean, it's just so prime M. Night territory, big family stuff. And he really starts to develop his particular brand of dialogue.
Yeah.
And it really starts coming to life here. A big thing about M. Night that people do not like is, I think, when you come in out of watching a bunch of other movies and you just sit down for an M. Night, you realize something is different. He writes in an atonal, poetic sort of dialogue that is often called clunky or cheesy or overwrought.
That's short-sighted.
Or inhuman. Brett, what it is form and function combined. Like so much of his work where it's creative and financially sound. There's the form and the function. He uses sort of exposition broadly to practical and poetic effect. It's a big tent offering, his films are. Sorry, Sean Levy. This is real populist cinema made for a broad audience, where it's somebody who is not afraid to set up exposition as broadly as humanly possible, but also take that opportunity to be as poetic as possible, which is why all of his great works kind of feel like these foundational Greek plays, or sort of these revisiting of the core elements that make particular genres great. And Signs is one of my first favorite times where I see him really stripping it all away, getting down to the function. It's a beautiful looking movie. It's terrifying. It has wonderful performance by Joaquin Phoenix. Mel Gibson's performance you can enjoy because it's a little kooky, a little good, a little bad. It's great to watch different actors. M. Night works with these great actors, Brett, and it's fun to watch these great actors enter his world, much like it's fun to watch different actors enter the cinematic language of a Wes Anderson movie or a Scorsese movie. M. Night Shyamalan has a cinematic value system that is upheld in every single film that he makes, and Signs is such an excellent node on that chain where he's deepening and settling into himself. Sixth Sense and Unbreakable are very M. Night. Signs is giving us a little preview, Brett, of the M. Night to come.
I agree. I think where he is like the true heir to Spielberg for our generation is that he is someone who is just constantly interested in the intersection between art and commerce. He wants to serve both ends. He wants to make movies that are massive cultural phenomenon. He said this explicitly before he made Sixth Sense. And this is before he had even a taste of success.
Right.
So this is just like an idea he had as a young filmmaker, is that I want to make movies that are cultural phenomenons, that have the sort of that have the control over the popular imagination that Jaws had. But I have some very specific artistic standards that I also want to satisfy.
It's like standards plus like this is how I express myself.
Yeah.
My poems, my songs don't sound like yours, and that differentiator is what's in the constant noise of the world that we live in. It's so crazy to hear all of a sudden this guy who's speaking atonally to us in a broad cinematic language, but it feels and sounds so different, which is why you kind of like turn your head and raise your eyebrow during some M. Night scenes. Is he is on a different register on purpose, and I love that he does that. And I think it's one of his beautiful, distinctive qualities.
Now, I have Signs at 4. You had it at 3?
I did.
All right, so I guess we have 4 taken up by the Sixth Sense. I'm going to tentatively put Signs in over the Sixth Sense, which is wild.
Okay, well, look, do it now, and I'm sure we'll go back here and have a little fights.
Yes,
and such
that
later.
is questionable to me, but
not to me, but to you,
yes.
And that's half the podcast.
All right.
So.
Now next
Sorry
up
about the
in
microphone,
2004, I want to,
Joe,
I want to talk to you about The Village, because I really don't. I don't know what the I don't know what people think of The Village. I don't know what the popular understanding of The Village is. I feel like it was sort of like it did well, but it was like his first movie that started to have a couple red flags, and then when he followed it up with Lay in the Water and The Happening, everyone was like, oh. I think The Village sort of gets lumped into that, in a way. And look, we'll talk about Lay in the Water and The Happening in a second, but here's what I say.
It does get lumped.
Here's what I want to say about The Village. I watched it this week with just a complete blank slate. I had no sort of, I wiped away any sort of expectations or anything about it. The Village is a fucking masterpiece. The Village blew me away. The Village is the like, if the Blair Witch Project is the like 90s early aughts heir to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which I think it is. I think it's the only thing that sort of like matches Texas Chainsaw Massacre's just sort of innate like
chutzpah.
DIY horror chutzpah.
Exactly.
The Village is the heir to The Wicker Man and like the great tradition of folk horror, I think. I really think The Village is on par as a 90s early aught American cinema version of Wicker Man and all that great sort of British folk horror of the 60s, 70s and 80s. The Village shocked me with its virtuosity, with the ambition of the script, with the execution of a nearly impossible plot, and then with the little still I'm the twist guy. I'm still gonna have a twist in here. He does like what the studios wanted from M. Night, but he also in the process makes just an incredible movie. I mean, this movie is, and we're going to be saying things about M. Night in this episode that you're like, really? Are you guys, but go watch these movies with just you in the movie. Throw out everything you think you know about M. Night and go watch The Village. Go watch The Happening. Go watch Signs. The Village is there are shots in this movie that are, there's a shot of Bryce Dallas Howard running across a field to try to find, and her character is blind, and she's going to find Joaquin Phoenix, but she knows that he is in trouble, and you know that he's in trouble, and everyone knows that this sort of journey across this field to find Joaquin Phoenix is doomed or is going to end in tragedy, and the way he shoots this her sort of stumbling across this field is not only on par with anything in Midsommar, any of the shots of Florence Pugh in Midsommar, it exceeds them because it has this sort of added level of this sort of heightened sort of literary storytelling to the whole thing that to me transcends anything that's in Midsommar, transcends anything that's in Robert Eggers' The Witch. We have a movie in The Village which, much like how Unbreakable is shocking in retrospect for the fact that it came 8 years before the MCU fucking got its shit together, The Village is incredible in retrospect when you watch it for it's sort of nailing an American version of folk horror 10 years before we get this sort of Robert Eggers, Ari Aster era of A24 auteur folk horror. M. Night is constantly ahead of trends in ways that you just didn't know at the time. But you go back and watch these movies now, and this guy, I really hope that M. Night's filmography is something that continues to sort of improve and gain in retrospect, because I do think one of his flaws is that he was just ahead of his time. I think he was ahead of the game. I think he was doing things before they became popular, before they became sort of even indie popular. And I think if you go back and watch his movies with a clean slate and think of them in their historical context, you're going to realize what I realized this week, which was this guy was really ahead of the game and was making incredible movies. that were just not fully appreciated at the time. And the Village is like the first really example of that. And I know the Village did well, and I think was critically appreciated enough. But to me, I went back and watched this, and I said, "This is a fucking masterpiece."
It wasn't critically
This
appreciated
is a masterpiece.
Enough. It was pretty handled pretty.
This movie is a
poorly.
masterpiece.
Like I had a C audience score. Like audiences and critics didn't like the Village, but
They're
the Village,
crazy.
the Brett
the
is
Village
correct.
Is so good.
The Village is an absolute masterpiece. It is absolutely gorgeously shot. Deakins shot it.
Yes,
like it's stunning, and it's shot, of course, in Pennsylvania, and it's the most controlled Shyamalan film wise. Like he is setting out to do something insanely specific with his camera. He does so. He uses his incredible cast to great effect in these long shots where he trusts his actors to just fill the frame and do their work, and they do. I'm talking, this cast includes Adrian Brody, William Hurt, Sigourney Weaver, shout him out, Brett, Joaquin Phoenix, Bryce Dallas
Brendan
Howard,
Gleeson, Cherry Jones, Judy Greer, Michael Pitt, Jesse Eisenberg in a small role, Bryce Dallas Howard in the best performance she's ever given on film. This is not like the Village is. Here's the thing. All right, here's what I'm going to tell you. When I watched The Village, I thought that's number one with a bullet for me in the M. Night Shyamalan filmography. I'm watching them in sequence. I ended up with it at number 2, which begs the question, what is my number 1, which I'll get to shortly. But The Village for me is number 2.
I'll get to shortly.
Yes, is number 2, maybe number 1. It is, I mean, this is his big, put it all out there movie. This cast, this is a, Shakespeare in the Park dream cast. This is a
the
troupe.
Cast is wonderful.
This is a fucking troupe of actors, and also smartly, because Joaquin Phoenix at this time is not current Joaquin Phoenix. It's also a very smart casting where there's no A-listers. There's no pull focus casting. There's no Tom Cruise. There's no Leonardo DiCaprio. There's nobody to pull focus. Instead, it is just 10 to 15 of the best fucking actors on the face of the earth.
Doing ensemble, all living together for 3 weeks. They had to go to a M. Night boot camp where they learned how to make candles and do horses, and they all lived together for a week, right?
Do not sleep on The Village.
Then he shoots it in 3 weeks.
Fucking rules.
It's beautifully shot. Yes. The paintings look like Thomas Eakins paintings or Andrew Wyeth paintings.
Yes.
You're getting Greenaway-esque levels of artistry in the cinematography, and these beautiful costumes. And the best costume of all is his incredibly effective and beautiful creature design.
Yes.
The creature in The Village
is
so scary, paired with
creepy.
such beauty.
Yes.
The movie's great. The twist works, gangbusters.
Yep.
It's a fucking thrill. Everything pays off correctly. This movie is an absolute 5-star masterpiece.
And the thing with the twists is associating M. Night with twists is such a studio marketing move. Whereas if you watch a movie like The Village, what M. Night is, because even after he does the twist, and you probably already know the twist of The Village, I knew the twist of The Village before I even saw The Village start to finish. But what is fascinating about The Village is what he does after the twist. And it's only after, when the twist happens, there's 5 minutes left in the movie. But what he does in those last 5 minutes is more critical than the twist. The way he sort of responds to the twist in the movie, the way he sort of inflects the twist.
Right.
He is not he does the twist to get the movies made because that's his brand and that's what the studios expect. But this is a fucking artist who is always trying to push his game to the next level. And so it's never just about the twist, and The Village is the great example of that. The killer scene to me in The Village is not the twist, but when the twist sort of resolves back into the status quo, when the twist doesn't really matter, when the twist happens and then 5 minutes later it doesn't, it's almost like the two people that know about the twist don't the twist at the end of The Village, the twist has disappeared into nothingness.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm not gonna I'm trying not to avoid, because I want everyone to go back and watch The Village if you haven't watched it already. This guy is interested in more than the fucking twist. The twist is what he has to do to get the movie made. but he cares about his movies
and his characters.
He cares about them in a way that you don't see. There is such cynicism in so many movies that come out nowadays, from Deadpool and Wolverine to whatever, to the King Kong X Godzilla, to the fucking Ghostbusters, just like there's so much just sort of like market cynicism in these movies. M. Night, for better, for worse, for hits and for flops, is a guy that is seeing these movies through start to finish and is trying to deliver a fascinating and compelling cinematic product for you. And The Village, to me, is one of the great, not quite the best, but the second best example of that in his filmography. I have The Village at 2. Where do you have it?
I have it 1 or 2.
1 or 2?
Yeah, just like you.
What did you actually have it, though, in your list?
I actually have it 1. I have it number 1.
How did you one-upped me? Because I told you Village was 1 for me.
Well, Village has always been 1 for me.
And then I backtracked.
Village has always been number 1 for me.
I mean, I'm happy for Village.
But there is a new movie that sincerely challenges the throne.
I agree.
But I've had about a decade of like defending The Village in my belt to not put it number 1.
So The Village is somewhere in 1 or 2 then. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Because
so the question is now we're getting into like the shady part of the filmography. So everybody's asking themselves, what is going to be number 1, if not Village, Unbreakable, Signs, or Sixth Sense?
Well, there's still some. Look, we got the new one. We got Trap. We got Split. We got
here we go.
Airbender. We have a lot of different ones to go through.
Right.
Who knows?
Village. I thought I was going to have it at 1, but when I got through the whole filmography, it was very solidly at 2 for me. All right, let's keep going. So Lady in the Water.
Yes. Where do you have that on your ranking?
All right, so Lady in the Water is very interesting, but it did not crack the top 10 for me. That Lady in the Water, and none of this is any shade. I love the roller coaster of M. Night movies. Lady in the Water is the first like dud for me. It's just the first that just doesn't work. It's like, it is like, I almost just can sum it up by the fact that Paul Giamatti's character is called Cleveland Heap. Like there's just like
a lot of that.
There's just a little too much affect in Lady in the Water and not enough product, not enough like delivering on the premise, not enough sort of like delivering the cinematic thrills and chills and fun and weirdness that we expect from M. Night. There's just a little bit too much affect in Lady in the Water.
Lady in the Water was a famous flop for him creatively and financially. It reteams him with Bryce Dallas Howard, and she plays a version of a mermaid that lives or finds herself in a pool in Philadelphia, and Paul Giamatti plays the custodian of that apartment complex. Or not, he's like the what do you call that? Like the guy who the building manager, right? It's what really sinks the movie for me? I think there's a couple parts of it that are good, and there's a couple pockets of it that are nice. I think it's sunk in the collective. It didn't work when it came out because he was very much supposed to be the horror twist guy at this point, and this is a very sentimental bedtime story. It's based on a bedtime story he used to tell his daughters. He's a very personal director, and his films are always coming out of like exactly what's happening in his life with his daughters at that time. This one, he is a bedtime story. It's for them, and it gives a lot of that. But what really kills this thing, Brett, what bogs it down, what ties cinder blocks to Lady in the Water's feet, is the like unnecessary, boring, and underwritten, but constantly written world building of the like fucking mermaid dogs and the mermaids, and having Paul Giamatti as one of his tenants like explain like over and over again on the phone in these really convoluted ways what's going on with the scary dogs and what the history of it's just like too much. If you want to do a lot of what it is, which is like beautiful, glistening, like you're my muse, and how the muses affect me, and what's scary, what's not. Like, there's all these like nice things in it. Do you know actually Cahiers du Cinéma, the famous French magazine,
yes.
which Godard and Truffaut wrote for, It had Lady in the Water 6th best movie of the year that year.
I love them.
That's classic them. They've had The Sixth Sense has been in the top 10 movies of the year. So has Lady in the Water, and so has Split. Those are the 3 movies that made Cahiers du Cinema's
I love them. Well, because
top of the year.
I
list.
mean,
I think they're wrong though. This is not in my top 10 either.
I think they're wrong with Lady in the Water, but I think what they did for Hitchcock and some directors, I think is what we're trying to do with M. Night. Whereas like when Cahiers du Cinema came along and was like, Hitchcock is the greatest American director of of all time, there was a lot of resistance to that. It's like, you mean the fucking horror camp B movies, the Hollywood like director? So I think we're trying to do the same thing for M. Night, which is rescue this guy from just being this sort of light joke now, and really enshrining him as one of the great, if not the great American genre directors of the last 20, 30 years, which I think is where he belongs. And the movie that I think most encapsulates this dynamic, this like need to sort of like redefine M. Night for legacy and for history, is 2008's The Happening. So tell me about because this is, I want to hear your take, because you were ahead of me on this, on watching The Happening, on reevaluating The Happening. This is up there as one of the like great like punchline movies. That was such a critical flop. It's so silly. We see scenes from it. It gets paired with scenes from like Nicolas Cage's Wicker Man. You see in these montages of like,
I think
what
Rolling
a silly,
Stone had
stupid movie
as like the 6th or 8th worst
movie of all time, right? It's always in conversation as like one of the worst movies of all time. And the thing you have to remember is that the American, like, not just like I actually think like whatever John Q. Public out there in the Midwest going to a movie is actually more appreciative and like willing to like ride with movies. The people who are the most fucking status quo fucking straight ass square normies are just like the film critics at basic ass legacy media outlets, who all said that like The Happening was just a terrible movie and a bad movie because the acting is like wooden and the plot is like has holes in this and that. And you watch this movie now and you watch it with a blank slate, you watch it with a clean conscience, forget all that shit. You were going to ask yourself, what the fuck are all these dumb, joyless, humorless fucks talking about? This movie is fascinating, and to sort of classify it as like a bad movie is an insane indictment of your character and your taste, and I don't know what you're looking at. But Joe was first on this before me, so I'm going to let him take the lead on The Happening.
Thank you. So watching all the Shyamalan movies, I've always said The Village is my favorite. I got to The Happening. I had just seen Trap, and I got home that night, and I was like, okay, now it's time to watch The Happening. This will be fun. I sit down, because it'll be bad. I sit down and I start watching The Happening. Almost immediately, I sort of feel like something scary is happening here. The Happening is about, so it stars Mark Wahlberg as a science teacher, famously,
high school
who's in a relationship
teacher
with Zooey Deschanel. And what happens is all of a sudden this sort of, they don't know it's ecological at first, but some sort of event, some sort of like terrorist or eco event happens where people are starting to kill themselves or throw themselves off of buildings, and everybody starts getting scared and has to move out of the city and sort of run, because this invisible encroaching force that's going to force you to kill yourself, it's going to shut down your brain chemistry and you're going to off yourself, is coming for you and you have to run away. The plot, first of all, the images are instantly eerie and terrifying. You are on a construction site and bodies start like falling out of the sky, and I had my hand over my mouth almost immediately, like, Jesus, that is the bleakest image I can have seen so far in this guy's filmography, and he's like literally M. Night Shyamalan horror director, so it is bleak. The suicides are intense. Mark Wahlberg is playing a science teacher, and what it reads isn't so much as a gross miscasting as just like a boring normal guy is now in a situation. Sort of. That's like my take on the Wahlberg. He's just like, what if a regular guy in Philly who was a regular science teacher who just like was like a little stronger than a regular science teacher looking. Everyone wants to shit on Mark Wahlberg and Zooey Deschanel. They play two normal people in an extraordinary situation. Anyway, they start having to get out
people's
of Philly.
criticism.
Yeah.
People's criticism of The Happening is a classic case of thinking that you're smarter than the movie, of thinking that you have outsmarted the movie, of thinking that when you see something that sort of is ostensibly presented as like bad acting, you just take it literally as bad acting and you don't plug it into the context of the movie that you're watching and into the sort of like the rhythm of the movie that you're watching. Is that you think you are better and smarter and bigger than the movie. In the case of The Happening, you're all wrong.
Yes, I completely
You're all
agree.
wrong. The Happening knows what it's doing. It understands what it's doing.
Because it's not a comedy. It's not a horror comedy, but it is a very funny movie. Because it also really relies on so much of the disaster movies of the past, Brett. Like, Wahlberg's so bad. It's like, not really. Like, it's a very disaster movie-esque. You know, this is Shyamalan doing The Birds. This is him doing The Fog. This is his version of those things. So anyway, they start leaving town. They encounter different people, and they try to figure out, like, how is this thing going to get them, and what's going to happen to them when they do. The people start sharing information with each other about what's going on, and what we sort of learn is that there's this incredible, all-consuming and terrifying ecological retribution being paid on sort of the people of Earth. Bears are ripping people apart. The trees are blowing poison into the air. It reminds me of Carol Churchill plays Far Away, where the whole ecology starts turning on each other and on humanity and destroying them. And that is what this movie is all about. It has this beautiful, like, eco-pessimism that is very before its time. And it also has this sort of wry smile at the lingering, post 9/11 Islamophobic, terrorist-obsessed sort of populace that can't imagine a fear outside of the constructs of terrorism. So everyone thinks there's terrorists. They're slowly learning it's this like ecological disaster eating them alive. And as the movie continues, Brett, I started getting more and more amazed because Shyamalan starts, instead of pacing this thing up and up and up and up and ratcheting it up, the movie starts to slow down. It's like longer scenes, longer takes, and you start to feel, and the sound design's incredible, and you start to feel like you're getting enclosed in all around. And then what's causing me to put my fucking hands over my eyes and over my face isn't people blowing their brains out. It's the wind blowing through the reeds.
The wind through the grass.
There's a shot where he shoots the wind blowing through the grass, and then the wind moves.
It's like
and then he shoots a tree.
Chasing you, but
Dude,
times
and then
10.
he shoots like a big tree, and it is so deeply terrifying and upsetting. It reminds me of those ghost holes we talked about last week in Kurosawa's Pulse, or it reminds me of, any sort of classic M. Night scare. But this time he has stripped it all the way back. And what M. Night is able to do, that only he can do, is he's now taken the wind and the sound of wind and turned it into a jump scare that's terrifying and ever like encroaching. Then this movie gets them all the way out into a field, and it's just them versus the wind, and they're terrified. And then it jumps to a future where this is sort of settled down for a while, and Wahlberg and Deschanel, who have next to no chemistry purposefully, are stuck
beautifully purposefully no chemistry.
Zero. They're stuck in like playing house because they've been put in this incredible situation watching over the daughter of John Leguizamo who died's kid. And then what happens at the end, as they really fumble towards this sort of nuclear domesticity, familiarity thing, the fucking breeze starts blowing again, and people are going to start blowing their heads off. This movie shook me to my core. It was legitimately terrifying. It was incredibly impressive. You know how Midsommar is so impressive because Ari Aster kept the lights on, and it is. what's really impressive is Shyamalan keeps the lights on this entire movie, and then he like is fucking ruining me with the wind and the pacing and the editing. Jeremy Strong plays like a PTSD riddled veteran who thinks he should take leadership position at a turn point during this, and Strong kills it, and he ends up
people trying to be like the sequence of like different characters trying to stand up and be the hero of the movie, and the way that their like heroism is just immediately undermined and belittled by the force of the movie is so fascinating and interesting. Joe, this amazing, needs to be, if it is not already happening, the happening needs to be our big 180, this generation's big 180 movie, where we all like admit that we didn't get it.
We were wrong.
It was light years ahead of its time. We still have not caught up to whatever the fuck he's doing in The Happening, but we need to start catching up to it, and we need to do a big fucking cultural 180 on The Happening and admit that this movie is a bizarre masterpiece.
Easy.
I had two moments in the movie that like defined my reaction to it. There was a moment early on, probably during like Mark Wahlberg's like first classroom scene, which is incredible, where Mark Wahlberg refuses to adjust to the character of a high school teacher at all, and is just giving you like dumbass Mark Wahlberg as a high school science teacher. That my first moment there was like, oh, this movie is like gloriously bad in a way that we don't get anymore, in the way that like, you know, Ed Wood is bad, or like 50s sci-fi or 80s horror movies, or like that beautiful Lost type of bad movie where it's so fun and so just sort of you can just indulge in the badness. That was my first read, you know, in those early scenes. Then there comes some moments early on where you're like, oh no, M. Night knows exactly what he's doing.
Because it gets scary.
He's executing everything. He is setting you up. Anything that's sort of like bad is like a setup. And like he is totally in control of this movie and he's like, this is like The Happening is his masterpiece.
It is his masterpiece.
It's his masterpiece. Because it's like you think like the smug dismissal of it as a bad movie is just stupidity. Like can you like imagine him sitting there watching the reviews come in and being like Mark Wahlberg and Zooey Deschanel have no chemistry, and can you imagine him in his house being like, I know, that was the point
of the Body Snatchers.
Yeah, it's like he knows, like if you watch this movie honestly, you will know that he is ahead of all your criticisms. He is intentionally doing the things that you're being critical of, and that means you're not understanding what the movie is about or how it's operating. And there is a moment that like the moment when I went all in on The Happening is they have shit's going crazy. People are killing themselves. Everyone's trying to like escape the cities, New York and Philadelphia, because they think these are like terrorist attacks centered in the cities, even though
everyone's immediate impulse is to run away from each other. And that's actually how you save yourself. Exactly. The movie is fucking
it's amazing.
Excellent.
Yes. So everyone has left Philadelphia, and they're like, all these strangers are now huddled in this like roadside cafe after like the train stopped working, and they're all in this roadside cafe. And they're all trying to like figure out, like get news and figure out like what's going on, what's happening, what's all this, what's going on.
What's the happening?
What is this? What's happening? Why are people killing themselves in New York and Philadelphia? And then this woman at this diner, and this is why The Happening is so great, because this is maybe the funniest scene I've ever seen in a movie / the most terrifying and interesting. Is this woman is looking on her phone at something, and she goes, "Hey, everybody, hey, look at this link my sister just sent me. Look at this." And she turns her phone to like everyone that's assembled around, Mark Wahlberg, etc. And she shows on her phone, this like video that someone took of a like zookeeper in the like Bronx Zoo, who under the influence of The Happening has wandered into the lion cages and then like slowly and like graphically just gets his limbs ripped off by lions. And so this woman is like anyone would be like, hey, look at this crazy video. Like, what's the craziest video anyone's ever like showed you in public? Like a car accident or something, right? Imagine if someone in a diner like showed her phone and it was a human being getting their like limbs ripped, like the muscles and tendons, like everything, like they're like getting their limbs ripped off by lions, and this woman's just like showing it around. Everyone's like, "Oh Jesus, yeah, that's crazy."
Yeah, what is going?
Yeah, what is going on? What is happening?
Crazy.
And then after she shows this, it's the craziest video anyone's ever shown anyone in public. She looks at it and then she looks at everyone. And she was like, "Is this the terrorists?" And I was like, "Got it. The Happening is the best, funniest, darkest satire of post 9/11 America that is out there. It is the definitive, funniest, darkest, like post 9/11 satire of America. And what it is ultimately, I think, is the things that people thought were like bad, is that he is taking the dynamics, like you said, of a 1950s Cold War era paranoid filled horror movie. Body Snatchers is probably the best example. He is taking that dynamic and putting it in like a post 9/11 context, and then giving us this sort of impossibly elusive, weird enemy which is nature, in order to get everybody to run in circles for 2 hours and reveal all of their like paranoia and inadequacies and fears and everything, and to get you to reveal your fears and you to like. So it is like him taking the dynamics of like an Invasion of the Body Snatchers movie, putting it in post 9/11 America, and giving us what is the best kind of masterpiece, which is the masterpiece that is derided at its outset and then gets like reinterpreted and rediscovered. Everyone needs to go back to The Happening, be honest, watch that thing start to finish, and tell me that you are not watching a fucking bizarre ass masterpiece of the 21st century.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. It doesn't really give a ton of answers at the end. It brings up all these amazing sort of ecological and societal like questions in that M. Night Shyamalan diction, which is so exciting. And watching this movie, Brett, I started thinking about M. Night loves basketball. At every Sixers game, not just the ones during the playoffs that you see on TV, like whether or not it's on TV, whether it's Tuesday night against the Spurs or whether it's on TNT, or Amazon, whatever it is now. M. Night's always at the Sixers games. He loves basketball, and I do too. So when I was watching that happening, he is like running a drill. Yeah. He is like dribble, shoot, up, down, hook, left, right. Yep. Like it's just like when I watch the movie, it's like good idea, good idea, good idea. That's a good cut. That's a good shot. That's a beautiful, good line reading. Love that line. Good idea. Yep. Great color. Great pan. Great. It's just like he is so in his bag at this time. He is so in control, making The Happening.
This is not the bottom.
It's also a fuck
this
you.
Is the top. The Happening is the
Lady
top.
in the Water, everybody hated that. He's like, you guys want to see me do my thing again? Here's something that is so funny, but also it's not a comedy. It is scary as all hell. People didn't like it because tonally, if you're, it's tough.
I also don't blame them. It's like
I don't blame them either.
I don't blame them.
It
is the classic example of a movie that takes 10, 20 years to like appreciate.
It's really showing. It's showing its brilliance.
You watch it now though with a clean slate. Oh my God!
One of the best horror movies of the past 25 years. So the images in it, this guy has some images in his filmography that are so low key but so stunning. I don't want to jump ahead to Trap, but I'm going to. It's in the trailer, so I'm not like spoiling anything. When he puts those giant bottles of canola oil in the hot grease and it bursts into that woman's face, the way he shoots that, just like these little images that just are so deeply upsetting, even though it's not a big jump scare or it's not some big grotesque head being blown off. And in The Happening, It's him at his most masterful because there is no bad guy. It's just the fucking air. And it's scarier than any of these other bad guys that he created. Even the beautiful monster in The Visit. The Happening is truly.
Here are some things that happen. Here's some things that happen. The Happening, real quick, and then we'll go on. Here's some things that happen. The Happening, in case you think we're like, and look, this is why
we just watched all the movies in a row. We're not doing a thing.
Exactly. Yeah. This is why our commitment. This is where our commitment to honesty pays off. Is that. Right. What we're telling you about The Happening is not. We are not trying to like. There's no agenda. We're not trying to rescue The Happening. We are telling you honestly what happens when you watch The Happening in 2024, which is you acknowledge that you are watching a bizarre ass singular masterpiece. And here are some things that happen in The Happening. Mark Wahlberg starts out like impossibly artificial in his performance, and then somehow gets like more and more artificial as the movie goes on, because what you are watching is someone who is not like designed to be the hero of the movie. Someone who is like artificially occupying the role of hero in the movie, but is so not prepared to be the hero of the movie. There's a scene that I've seen get like, reposted on YouTube is like one of the worst scenes in movie history. Look how dumb Mark Wahlberg acts in this scene. There's a scene where like a bunch of people over the hill have just been like caught up in the wind that carries with it like the suicide poison or whatever the fuck. And they are all like, you hear over the hill gunshots, and what's happening is all of these people are just killing each other. And then Mark Wahlberg and his little crew that have broken off are trying to figure out what to do. And Mark Wahlberg just keeps desperately begging them, just give me one more minute. Let me think about this. Just give me one more minute. Just give me a second. Just give me a second. Just give me a second. Just give me a second to think about this. And they're all standing there going, we have to do something. We have to do something. We have to do something. And Mark Wahlberg keeps saying, just give me a second. Okay, just give me a second. Can I have 1 second to think? Just give me 1 second to think. And this dynamic keeps going on and on until everyone on the other side of the hill is dead and the gunshots stop.
Guys,
that is so how did we not realize how good this movie was when it came out? That is a like stunning inversion of every fucking trope that would normally occupy that moment in a movie. It is stunning, stunningly bizarre, stunningly interesting, stunningly surreal. There's a moment where two like wisecracking M. Night Shyamalan kids, you know the type of character in M. Night Shyamalan movie, like a kid who's like, like wisecracking beyond his years. Two of these kids sort of fall in with the Mark Wahlberg, Zooey Deschanel crew that's like trying to like flee the wind. And they show up at like some sort of like redneck's house, and they're all like holed up, and then like Mark Wahlberg's trying to get in the house with his crew of people. And then these rednecks end up like killing the kids like with guns out the window, right? And then there was a shot where Mark Wahlberg is bending down and he's holding the body of one of these kids in his arms, and you can see from the shot that this kid has no like head, like his like he got shot with a shotgun in the head, like his like it's out of focus, so it's not like super gory, but you can just see out of focus this guy's not just dead, he is X, he's beyond, he's so dead, like this guy has no head, he's so dead. And Mark Wahlberg's holding his body and he goes, we're gonna get out of this nightmare. And I was like, this is the best post 9/11 American satire that is on record. This is that, like, we owe it. We owe it to the culture. We owe it to movies. We owe it to M. Night to do a big fucking 180 reevaluation of The Happening, because there are so many moments in this movie. Remember when they like cut to the nightly news, like the whatever the CNN of this world is, and there's one scene where the reporter is just sort of lightly insinuating that the CIA did everything.
Yes, yeah. Some people are saying that the government was in on it and that the CIA actually released the toxin. It's like,
it's just like a light. That's the most.
But it makes you think like, oh, I guess the deep state got happening. Like, oh, I guess the media stopped listening to the top guys.
And this movie came out
simultaneously funny and scary.
This movie came out in 2008, and that scene is the funniest satire of just like irresponsible like conjectures like clickbait journalism. Right. It's so like a person on CNN is like, some are conjecturing that the CIA might be behind all of your deaths. It is. This movie is. And here's the thing, Joe. I don't like. I want to go rewatch The Happening tonight.
Me too.
Like I don't like. It was just a first.
It was my favorite.
First
it was
taste
electric.
of like, oh my God, there's so much here.
When I watched
there's so much in this movie.
It was electric.
Yeah.
I was on the edge of my seat. My hands for real over my eyes and my mouth because it was so shocking. It's his Spielberg War of the Worlds. It's his Civil War. It's actually a good post-COVID watch too because there's lots of like COVID coded shit in there. Anyway,
the lesson of The Happening is when a human being makes The Sixth Sense and Unbreakable and Signs and The Village, that person is not incapable of making a bad movie, but don't just like think that don't just think that person just like is dumb and you're like
that's the weirdest thing is like why did they
give this person some credit?
Like Lady in the Water, maybe he's too sentimental, maybe he's an egomaniac.
Yeah.
Maybe this wasn't his best movie, but we can't just like never. So The Happening came out right after Lady in the Water, and everyone just was so ready to hate because in Lady in the Water, M. Night plays the main character who's like the savior writer. It's kind of crazy and weird.
Lady in the Water for me
people were ready to hate him.
Was the like down movie. Lady in the Water to me, I get it. It doesn't work.
It's okay. I think Paul Giamatti's kind of good in it, but I really don't think it's a good movie.
Yeah, it's not a good movie, but it's like it's whatever. It's fine. It's not great. It's a swing and it's a miss.
Okay, but The Happening is you're getting
holy shit.
It's all of his skill sets at once, including his most like endearing skill set, which is, his singular personal thoughts at the time. He's so honest about where he is in his life and what he's afraid of and how he feels about things. And The Happening is fucking.
Here's the thing, Joe.
Pure baby.
After I watched The Village, I was like, nothing beats The Village. Village #1 for me. After watching The Happening, because I also want this list to like represent M. Night Shyamalan. I want it to be like our favorite M. Night Shyamalan movies, but also I want to have a sense of like these are also like most representative of.
Because right now what we're talking about is Happening going to go 1 or 2?
That's right.
Because all right, good. I'm glad that we got it.
I want everyone to know this is not like.
Folks, we just watched all the movies in a row.
This is not provocation. This is not like deep meta irony. This is just honest responses to the movies that we're watching. And I believe that if you watch them back to back to back, you will have the same response. I have The Happening as his best movie.
The reason I don't or I didn't was because it's tough because I've never seen The Happening before, so I have that first time fucking rush. And The Village I've seen literally 4 or 5 times, and I've always thought it was #1, and I've always loved it. So I didn't want to like betray it by immediately with my hot new thing, The Happening. That being said, The Village.
Here's what Happening has over The Village. Go ahead.
The Happening has the freedom. The Happening has the jazz. The Happening has the full heart. And The Village is the meticulous watch of a perfect craftsmanship.
Yeah. The Village is almost his like Merchant Ivory movie. The
so
Village is like
beautiful and perfect,
exquisite. Like and I really don't get the reputation that M. Night has now because The Village is there are sequences that are totally, without any exaggeration, on par with A24 horror. And there are sequences like, remember that shot when like Bryce Dallas Howard is going, and even like that color, that like shade of yellow they chose as like it's like such an incredible color. And then that scene where Bryce Dallas Howard is like going through the woods to like go get the medicine, and she falls in that ditch.
Mm-hmm.
And then he just like stays on her, like stuck halfway down the ditch. I was like, this is the opening 5 minutes of There Will Be Blood. Like, there's not like, they're like aesthetically, like I get
it's his most beautiful.
The only
movie.
differences are like sort of like cultural context and our sort of inherent understanding that PTA is a better director than M. Night. But if you just break these things down visually, there are like scenes in The Village are on par with what PTA is doing. They're on par with what all the A24 horror auteurs are doing. Like, this guy, you watch these movies now back to back to back, his reputation is like, you're just like, why? How did this happen?
I don't know.
This guy is like a master. Yeah. He's up there with all the greats.
In The Happening, when Mark Wahlberg talks to the fake plant like it's a real plant, which is like a famously derided scene.
Yeah.
By the time you get to the end of the scene and you've gone through every emotion of this is scary, this is stupid, this is brilliant, that was so funny, it's more radically cinematic than like the frogs falling out of the sky in Magnolia.
Yes, and more meaningful.
It like dropped my jaw. I was like, wait, what? He put in a really scary but also really insane, like a very funny joke into this moment.
Yep.
What a weird guy. What a crazy choice. What a ballsy choice. What a choice that he shoots from the hip, this guy. You're right, Brett. Earlier in the show, making fun of, Marvel, we're going to A/B test every fucking decision we make.
Yep.
This guy gets on set. He shoots from the hip. He feels it. And I think that if we were going to, right now it's a decision between The Village, which is here's my, the epitome of my craft.
Jewel.
Versus The Happening, which is, here's the epitome of my spirit.
Yes. That's why I think it goes number one. And also because I think The Happening has so much in it that is like legitimately funny that the Village
is not funny.
The Village is like they let M. Night direct his like King Lear in Shakespeare in the Park or something. They let like The Village is just a perfect, exquisite jewel. It's his like most refined movie.
Easily.
It's his most, but The Happening is his.
It has the je ne sais quoi.
Yes,
it has the M. Night magic.
But to me, The Happening is his most fully realized movie of his total vision.
I completely agree.
And it's so, and like, here's the thing too, which I love about The Happening. We have not like caught up to it yet.
No,
that's like we are fucking stupid. Like we have not like we.
Well, that's okay. We were all just told that this movie stinks, but like let's all go back and enjoy.
I don't even think like there was a great review that I sent you about. Oh
yeah, I read
Trap.
it.
Did you read that review? It was really
it was
good.
Awesome.
Yes, and that guy mentioned in his review of Trap. I want to get this exactly right because it's like really, it's kind of exactly how I feel about Trap, which is, and this was in on the website, thefilmstage.com by Nick Newman. God bless you, Nick Newman. He wrote a really impassioned defense of Trap, and then he has this line where he says, "The Happening, a film that I understand less than any in the medium's history." And I think that is kind of sums it up, is that as much as I am now, like, I am totally on board The Happening. I think it's Shyamalan's masterpiece.
It is.
I also truly don't think we are there yet. Like, The Happening still feels like 5 to 10 years ahead of where we're at in terms of movies. Like, this thing combines sincerity and kitsch in these sort of seamless ways that you're not prepared for. It combines B-moviness with like horror auteurness in a way that you're not combined. It combines like, it is a movie that is combining like high and low aesthetics in a way that is like so far ahead of its time that like in our just sort of status quo stupidity, we all said, oh, bad movie. No, 10 to 15 years ahead of its time, great movie.
It ends sort of the first arc of his career because after The Happening, he's going to go make those 2 studio films.
He has to. He has no choice.
And this is the end of the end of the first giant phase of his career before he goes to director jail. He directs the studios and then he goes into the self-financing his own IP. But The Happening is like, it has the scale and scope, even though he only made it for $48 million.
Crazy.
The scale and scope of his previous offering with the B-movie romance that we're going to end up loving in his later stuff.
Yes.
I just think that's why it's the synthesis of everything we love about him and why it's a great number one is it's the best of the beginning and it's the best of where we are now.
That's it.
And it's going to only get better with time. He wanted to make a B-movie with The Happening and he succeeded in every way, shape, and form. A B-movie, of course, I think the magic to a B-movie is just like it's expertly crafted genre stories that are made with love.
Yep.
It's genre stories of limited means that are made with love and intention. That's when a B movie really sings. They didn't have any money, but they put their fucking heart into it. And though this monster looks like he is not real, there's a lot of love there and it works. That is coming through full blast in The Happening, paired with the eeriest, most fright-inducing imagery in the Shyamalan
and I think
filmography.
I think it's interesting that he started out wanting to be Spielberg, because I think with The Happening, he cemented his legacy, which is that he kind of did the inverse of what Spielberg did, where Spielberg took B movies, Jaws, and turned them into the summer blockbuster. He took B movies and made them into what we understand as Hollywood blockbuster movies. Jurassic Park in the 60s, that's a B movie. In Shakespeare's hands, in Spielberg's hands in the 90s, that is the biggest movie that's ever happened. That is Spielberg's big gift and also curse to the movies, is that he sort of turned B movies into these impossibly profitable, massive movies. I think Shyamalan, for all the money that he's made with his movies, I think his contribution is a little different in that he is restoring B-moviness to Hollywood blockbusters. That he is bringing back that sort of like confusing, like low kitsch of B movies. He's putting that back into the body of Hollywood blockbusters as a way of making them sort of weird and personal again, as a way of finding unexpected charms in them. That he is like restoring, because like thinking of B moviness as like lesser than was always wrong. It's all we're talking about is profitability. We call them B movies because they're less profitable than A movies, not because they are any less insightful. That's the whole point of cinema, that it overturns and upsets all of our understandings about low culture versus high culture, that it shows us that meaning can be found anywhere. Meaning can be found in the most sort of basic genres as much as it can be found in sort of like high drama. And so Shyamalan's like contribution to contemporary cinema is that he is one of the last people who is keeping the dream of B movies alive in the body and vessel of Hollywood movies, so that we sort of have some connection to the history of cinema and to the history of movies, and are not just all collapsing into the corporate hegemony of Marvel and DC and Disney and Star Wars. It is such a valuable, meaningful job that he is doing, and it is, I think, as important as the work that Spielberg did, but to me, it is going in the opposite direction. It is saying, like, you know, the Spielberg trajectory gave us Marvel. I'm going to sort of go in the opposite direction and bring the Hollywood blockbuster back to its roots in B movies in order to restore some uniqueness and some weirdness and some singularness to these movies.
Yep. And honestly, well said. That was my favorite point of yours of the evening.
Thank you.
That is a very cool way to think about it.
I've got The Happening at 1, Village at 2, Signs at 3, Sixth Sense at 4.
I mean, we gotta, like, here's what I think we should do, Brett.
Yes.
We have a bunch of movies left. I say we rip through. We're gonna skip the 2 studio ones. He made Airbender. He made After Earth.
God bless. He had to keep his career going. They're not going to make the top 10.
Then
or top 5.
So then, just to rattle him off,
yes.
He made The Visit.
His big wager, his big comeback.
He made the wager film, The Visit. It worked. Then he made Split for $9 million, made a fortune. Then he made Glass. Then he made Old, Knock at the Cabin, and then his new one, Trap, which we haven't even talked about yet.
We haven't talked about the new one.
We're almost 3 hours into the podcast.
Look, guys, it's the M. Night episode. It was always going to be a long one. I like all of these movies.
Me too.
Here's what I'll say. Yes, here's what I'll say.
Pick and choose some points about these films.
Yes, we have one slot left. Here's what I'm going to say. Okay. Yeah. Split and Glass I like a lot. I remember seeing Split in theaters and loving it and being like, oh boy, M. Night is back. Here we go. And then when the twist happens at the end and you realize it's a sequel to Unbreakable, or sort of like in the same universe as Unbreakable, fun. What fun. What fucking, we're all having fun here. I love it. A movie that is sort of like he's so good at giving you like intensity and suspense, and also just the fun of like we're watching a movie. Like, he's so good at combining those things together, and maybe there's no better place than in Split, where it's just like a tense fucking artistic horror thriller with just the fun of cinema kind of surrounding it. Glass I love was fun. Old I think is really good. I really like Old. Like there's
I really like Old too, Brett. It's just a good old fashioned fucking movie.
Because there's
like Trap, just a fucking good old fashioned
Old and Trap
movie.
feel like two sides of the same coin, where he's sort of he's figured out he doesn't have much like Francis Ford Coppola told Paul Thomas Anderson at that restaurant after he made Boogie Nights, whatever you want to do it now, because you're never gonna have this freedom again. Like M. Night knows that he's never gonna ever have the freedom of post Sixth Sense world ever again. That world, not only does his career is not there anymore, the world and the industry is not there anymore.
Don't worry about it. He made his 3 greatest movies during that period, and now
so I love like Old and Trap are such a great prospect of what's to come from M. Night, though, because I love him just digging into these like tight, like conceptual but controlled, low budge, interesting B horror movies. He is the only guy, to say it again, that is keeping alive the dream of, along with Blumhouse, to be fair, is keeping alive the dream of like original IP B horror movies that they can still play in theaters, they can still get reactions. I saw like when I went and saw Trap in theaters, my audience was, there were some of the beats near the end of the movie that the audience was finding like a little silly, and they were laughing at in the movie theaters, but I kind of loved it, because it's like that's the value of these type of movies, is like, you're not Marvel movies, Star Wars movies, these big franchises. There's this vibe where everyone is being sort of bullied into consenting to the movie. It's like everyone is sort of like bullied by the corporate sort of like largesse of it all. Whereas like M. Night is taking a risk by making Old and by making Trap, because he's taking the risk that people might just sort of like laugh at the silly horror B-moviness of it all. But that's fucking fun.
Yeah, and he's aware of it, and he has fun with it. And Trap is
so fun.
Trap has lots of nice, funny moments. I think the entire first act of Trap is really almost like a farce, in the sense where he's running around trying to figure out how to escape. And his daughter's trying to enjoy the concert and being like, "Dad, why are you being so weird?" It was very like, M. Night Shyamalan movies are funny. Anyway, Brett, I agree. I like Old as well.
The only one of that sequence that I was like a little down on is Knock at the Cabin, and just felt like a little undercooked. But
I'll go with you on that one. I like Knock on the Cabin, but it's definitely towards the bottom of my list, even though, watching M. Night be as restrained as he is in Knock at the Cabin and still like yield some impactful horror results is always impressive. But ultimately, I agree. Now, Brett, you haven't spoke about
what's making 5. Okay, all right. So we both have here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 6 movies then, and neither of us have picked a 5 yet. So for me, out of these 6 movies, the one that cracks the top 5, I like Split a lot. I'd say that's like in my top 7 or 8. Old, I think, is in my top 7 or 8. Trap is in my top 10. But the one out of this like current phase that's going to make my top 5 is The Visit. I thought The Visit, it's his big wager movie. He financed it himself. He took a mortgage out on his house. It's his big I need to go back to making the movies I want to make, and it's going to be a risk, but I'm going to take the risk, and hopefully it pays off, and it paid off big. The Visit is the first one that Blumhouse was in on, the first one he did with Universal, and it is a found footage movie where these 2 kids go to visit their grandparents for the weekend, and the daughter is like filming a documentary about like connecting with her grandparents for the first time, because the grandparents are estranged from their daughter, the granddaughter's mother, et cetera, et cetera. So she's doing a whole documentary about family. And then there is a twist. It is the reasons I like The Visit. Number one, it is M. Night's like most straightforward horror movie. It's his scariest movie. There are like he is like rejoicing in jump scares in a way that like almost like he just discovered you could do jump scares. Like he is having so much fun with horror
and
tropes. They're good.
This movie, they work.
Like Joe.
Listen, man. We watch a lot of movies. I watch a lot of horror movies. Jump scares.
This movie's scary.
Jump scares are tough to get someone that's watched a bunch of horror movies. I got like 4 times.
Remember
the visit got some jump scares.
And I liked Long Legs, but remember the bill of goods we got sold on Long Legs, the scariest movie in the last 20 years, scarier than Silence of the Lambs. I saw Long Legs in a dark theater, right? I watched The Visit on my laptop while I was washing dishes, okay? The Visit is 10 times scarier than Long Legs. 10. On my laptop watching dishes, I was like, oh, oh, fuck. And Long Legs, I just sat there the whole time going, cool, yeah. I like this. This is weird, fine. Yeah. Long Legs is weird. The Visit is weird. The Visit is fucking terrifying. Dude. It is fucking like The Visit. When The Visit come out, 2015, I'm just gonna say it. Visit's like the scariest movie of the last 20 years. The Visit, when Shyamalan digs into horror as horror, like, because you realize with The Visit, the thing I liked about it is I was like, oh, this guy's like never really done horror. He's done because to me, The Sixth Sense, like I've said, is like, on the rewatch, you're like, oh, this isn't horror. This is like an elegy. This is like a sad movie about loss. And you can say that about, like, The Visit is the first time where he's like, oh, you thought I'm a horror director? I'm going to do horror, and I'm going to do it better than anyone. And, like, it's not like, look, The Visit's not a perfect movie. I wouldn't say it's like one of the great horror movies of the 21st century, but like it is in M. Night's canon. It is scary, and it is scarier than most of the movies that have come out in the last 20 years.
I have a thing when I watch horror movies. I call it 22. It's the scare when it's like the cat in the bush. Because the scare when it's the real monster comes at 30. It's like 30 minutes into the movie. But at 22, the cat jumps out of the bush. Okay, M. Night has like a 22 in this movie. And the 22 always, I'm always like, okay, here comes the fucking 22. Here comes the cat in the bush. And you can check your computer. It always happens around 22 minutes. He does a 22 in The Visit, but like he does it at like 40. But it's like the girl like comes out of the closet and goes boo to her little brother.
Yes.
And me at home like scary. I'm like, bah! Like it scared the shit out of me. Anyway, The Visit is scary.
The best part of The Visit too, real quick, sorry, is that like he's having The Visit honestly could be a little bit higher for me if I'm not, because like the thing is when you think about it as like he is like if The Visit doesn't work, he's not just like done with making movies. He like
has to move.
He like can't pay for his like kid's school. Right, like he is like he was like he risked it all, and the fact that he risked it all and then made his what is easily his most like aggressive movie in terms of like the scares are so aggressive, the gross out stuff is so aggressive,
so weirdly aggressive.
Guys, I don't want to give too much away, but like there's a scene where like a grandfather man like an elderly man like takes off his diaper, which he's just shit in, and then like shoves it in the face of like who you thought was his like grandson. I don't even know what I'm like, listen to what I'm saying, okay? The Visit is fucking wild. The Visit, like, and like there and like the thing that's so great about the jump scares, he doesn't just like, so there's an old woman in The Visit, an elderly woman who is like the scariest character in a horror movie in the last 20 years. And she's always like creeping around and like walking around on all fours and doing all sorts of creepy shit. But when he does a jump scare with her, it is like scary and joyful at the same time. Because you know how in like a normal horror movie, the jump scare will be like, huh, and it's like a scary thing.
Right.
In The Visit, the jump scare is this with the old woman. Huh. Like he does a jump scare and then he like then he like exults in the jump scare.
He does like a touchdown dance.
Yes,
and it's so terrifying.
It's so amazing.
Yeah.
So you'll get like a jump scare, and then the character who has done the jump scare will literally do like a touchdown dance in front of you, and because of how much they just scared you. And so you go from being scared to being like, cool, like yeah, let's roll. It's like it's amazing. The Visit is
good. I think the Visit is
a
great.
grower. The Visit might be up there with The Happening in terms of like it's gonna grow and grow and grow.
Sure, it's good. The Happening is like
on its own plane.
The Happening is like a masterpiece of the highest order.
Visit rules though.
The Visit is a really, really, really good movie. And I'm happy to see it on this list for some of the reasons
for me
you laid out.
That's my 5.
Just so you know, I like 2 of his movies more than The Visit. I like Split very much. And I think Split is the best of the a crazy guy traps young people, usually women, in the bottom of their house thing, which we get a lot of. Everything from not Barbarian, I guess, but whatever.
Yeah,
all those movies.
I mean,
the Black Phone.
Yeah,
even Trap. But I do think that it's my 5th favorite, or actually it's my 4th favorite Shyamalan movie. Split is because it rides on the power of James McAvoy's performance. So we've spoke a lot about all the things that M. Night brings to these movies. He has a lot of collaborations with many of the great actors and actresses of our time. But I think my favorite performance in his whole oeuvre is James McAvoy's completely and totally batshit bought in 150% theater kid performance in Split when he does all the different characters and personalities. You needed to find an actor with that much buy-in, and so that the director could have that much trust to do their crazy thing. And in Split, when it turns out that actually he's not just schizophrenic, but he has like magical powers, or at least one of his schizophrenic characters does. And James McAvoy's running on all 4s as the Beast through like the lightning striking field. I
rewatched it last night. I rewatched it last night for you, and it's very good.
Thank you.
I mean,
is good
because here's the problem.
Anya Taylor-Joy's in it.
I have it at 6. Like I have it like right there. So So here's the thing. I think we've narrowed it down because look. Glass is fun, but it's like
Glass is
like
bad.
Third, it is
Glass is approaching fun bad movie.
Yes,
like it's a fun movie that's good to watch for a couple different reasons, and a lot of those reasons is like it doesn't work 150%.
Glass is what people.
I mean?
Glass
like,
is what people
watch, though,
were saying about The Happening. It's like so bad it's good.
It's fun to watch.
Happening, he knows what he's doing. You're just behind it. Glass is like fair enough. It's like it kind of is like not. It's like fun.
Good parts, bad parts. Yes. There's things that we admire about it. Of course.
Old I like a lot, but it's just like it's not.
No.
Old to me is like sort of on par with Trap, and they're both sort of like in the 8, 9, 10 ranking. They're in the 8, 9. They're not in top 5.
It's like I already read, and then there were none.
Yeah,
and I read The Murder on the Orient Express, but like luckily the 9th Agatha Christie book is like that with different names for the characters. Like it's still going to be the same feeling.
So we still have to actually review
Old and
Trap, which we'll do at the very end.
Well,
all right.
Well,
so here's the thing. So it's down to Split or The Visit, I think. And here's what the dilemma is. If we don't put in Split, it means we have no representation for like M. Night's only recurring franchise, like recurring universe, which is Unbreakable, Split, Glass. This is only like continued universe throughout. Everything else is just a standalone movie. So if we don't put in Split, we have no representation for his only like extended universe movies. If we don't put in The Visit, I don't think we're acknowledging how important that moment was in his filmography. Coming out of the Last Airbender and After Earth, he's at the lowest possible point in his career. And this guy could have just said, fine, I did it, I had fun, now I'm just a gun for hire, and we'll sell the big house, we'll get a smaller house, and we'll still be fine. Instead, he said, I'm going to take a bet on myself. And the bet that he made on himself was his like nastiest, filthiest, scariest movie ever. And then that's what bought him this latest run. Is The Visit. You don't get Split without The Visit. You don't get Old without The Visit. You don't get Trapped without The Visit. Without The Visit, he's doing the fucking Transformers prequel that's coming out in 2 months that no one's going to go see.
Transformers 1.
Transformers 1. So without The Visit, you don't get any of that. And I think The Visit is like legitimately the best of this like post happening Shyamalan.
I watched The Visit today.
Okay.
It really surprised me about how good it was. The part where the grandma is chasing them under the house.
Yes,
that's a little masterclass, baby. That is when he just takes that camera under that house and he does 3 scares in a single tracking shot
in the crawl space.
And it is beautiful looking, and it
using
is
long legs example. How many times a year, as a horror movie fan, do you get told you are about to see the scariest movie you've ever seen?
Every single time.
And then it's fucking long legs, and you're like,
The Visit is scary, which is very, very nice.
The Visit is legit scary.
The dings against it, of course, that I'm going to have to say it is it stars 2 children, so that's obviously not good.
Yes.
Although I think these children are fine. Even the kid that has to rap sells it because he owns it, much like James McAvoy and Split.
Did you watch the final rap?
I did. I watched the whole final rap. Yes.
Right?
Yeah. Kind of crazy. Because I'm so happy that The Happening is won.
Yes.
I am happy to have The Visit in there, even though I personally think Split's a little better.
Now here's a suggestion that would be very, very controversial.
Because I love Trap. But it's not ready for 5.
Trap is great. It's not top 5.
It's not ready for 5
yet.
It's
not top 5 yet. Here's what
I have
think.
It at 6. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
One option is
get rid of Signs.
Maybe. Yeah, I don't think you can get rid of Sixth Sense, even though it's 4.
But you know what's fucked up?
It's like unimpeachable at 4.
Right. Because then you ask yourself, okay, but is Split better than Signs? No. Is The Visit better than Signs?
The Visit is not better than Signs.
No, and neither is Split, unfortunately. It's a little bit not as good.
This is the weird head-to-head of Shyamalan, though, is like, it's not as simple as like, because like, for me, like,
right.
The Visit's not better than Signs. Like, here's the weird thing about Shyamalan. I think The Visit is better than Split.
Okay.
But not better than Signs. But I think maybe Split is better than Signs. Like, this is the weird,
okay, no.
like, Shyamalan does this to you. That's why he's so good.
He twists you around.
Yeah.
You've made an impassioned case for The Visit. You brought The Visit to me. You changed my opinion on The Visit. I understand what's so great about it now. And I really do.
The Yahtzee scene at the end.
The Yahtzee scene is incredible.
When she turns to the camera and screams Yahtzee with like crumbs out of her mouth is the funniest, scariest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, The Visit's great, and I did end up upon rewatch loving how he handled found footage, which was this little girl is really good at cinematography.
Yes, no, he does
like
such
it actually
a good
works
job.
Really well.
He does such a good job of like maintaining the illusion of found footage. That this is like a camera that is like half of the scenes you only see them because the camera just accidentally got left on and is like sitting on a counter. He does such incredible things with found footage. He does like honestly more than any other found footage movie. He figures out a way to still direct the movie and maintain the illusion that it's all found footage.
I agree.
Right?
I'm happy with it at 5.
Okay, all right.
I'm happy with it at 5.
This is crazy that none of the Unbreakable trilogy is in here.
No, it's not. Like Glass was never going to make it. Unbreakable is an excellent movie that's not necessarily for us, Brett.
Yes.
And you killed Split in the crib. You took Split out back and
I like Split. I like Split a lot, but it's just not gonna.
Brett, you don't like Split. Don't even fucking talk to Split anymore. Split's dead.
No, I do. Split's 6.
Split's mad at you, dude.
Split 6.
No, dude, Split's mad at you, dude.
There's too many good movies.
Split's mad at you, man.
He made too many good movies.
Brett, before we end the episode.
Yes. All right, let's go through the top 5 M. Night Shyamalan movies of all time.
Okay, let's do it.
All right.
We'll do Trap on
Thank you for hanging in there
takes.
for this 3-hour episode.
We'll review Trap, the main movie we watched this week on
all right, I guess we're not. Are we gonna do Basement Takes? We just did a 3-hour episode. Okay, we're not doing
it tomorrow. But
yeah. All right.
Top 5 M. Night Shyamalan movies, as decided by Movies Baby 5 Wise. Number 5, The Visit. Number 4, The Sixth Sense. Number 3, Signs.
Hold on.
I know what you want to do.
Sixth Sense has to be over Signs.
Fine.
Yeah. Okay.
Fine.
All right. I don't know how that happened.
Because I disagree, but also I know you're right.
Right? Come on.
Just because I disagree doesn't mean you're wrong.
No, that's just like
okay. All right.
That's
folks,
just for like
no.
credibility.
Okay. Sorry. Okay.
All right.
Because The Sixth Sense is perfect all the way through, and it gets better by the end. And Signs has these moments of what?
Because like what we're doing is what we've done with Planet of the Apes, what we're doing with Godzilla is like it is this combination of like best movies, right, but also most representative of the filmmaker. And so like I think like Signs to me is a little more representative of Shyamalan, but The Sixth Sense is so good that it just has to.
Yeah, and like, he made that, like, guys. Yes, you know what I mean? Like, he did make. Okay, fine. Yeah. 5, The Visit. 4, Signs. 3, The Sixth Sense. 2, The Village. And the number one
M. Night Shyamalan movie of all time.
M. Night Shyamalan movie of all time.
We're not kidding. It's not a joke.
It's a masterpiece. I don't disagree.
True.
I slept on it. The next morning I woke up. I sat up straight.
I can't stop thinking about this movie.
I gave it a 5 stars on Letterboxd, and I wrote masterpiece alert in all caps.
He's right.
The second I woke up, number one is The Happening.
M. Night Shyamalan movie of all time. The
Happening.
Arguably the best science fiction movie of the 21st century.
And one of the scariest and one of the best horror movies of the 20th century.
And look, this is not like, oh, we're so like I did not know this. I did not know this was true until this week, and I'm just now like encouraging everyone. Let's do this collectively as a culture. Let's do the big fucking 180 on The Happening, okay? And I don't care who gets credit for it. I don't care if some big like vulture think piece ends up being the like centerpiece of this. I want it so bad for M. Night. I want us all to do our big fucking 180 on The Happening because it's deserved. It's needed, and there's so much interesting stuff in there that we're discounting as bad filmmaking. It's M. Night Shyamalan. He knows what he's doing. Fucking watch the movie for real.
Folks, we've talked a lot about the man as a filmmaker, and he is one of the best our culture has, and we're lucky to have him. But I just want to say, as a button to the episode, he's not just one of the great filmmakers. He's on the Mount Rushmore of Philadelphians.
There he
M.
is.
Night,
there he is.
Philly loves you. I love you. You are the greatest ambassador. Watching your filmography and seeing all the parts of the main line and all of the Malvern-y kind of fields and the Berwyn and the Reading and the downtown. God damn, it was so nice to be home. And you proved to me that you can just live wherever you want and you can do whatever you want as long as you're ambitious and you stay true to yourself. You're a great family man. I love the way that you treat your family and the way you work with your daughters. I love your brilliant movies. I love the way you handle yourself. And I'm proud to be a Philadelphian. And there's very few Philadelphians we can say that about. So thank you, M. Night. We love you. Philly loves you. God bless you. God bless America.
That's right. Atlanta, my hometown, has Tyler Perry. And
not
Philadelphia, Joe's hometown, has M. Night Shyamalan.
That's much better.
I love it. So we're not going to do basement takes tonight because we just did 3 hours on M. Night Shyamalan. We're not going to do Trap. We're so fucking
But we are going to
tired.
thank Margot.
Yes.
Thank you, Margot.
We didn't even review Trap.
We didn't talk about
All
Trap.
Right, here's the thing.
We'll
really quick. We'll talk about on tune in tomorrow on Twitch, or you can catch it later on replay on the Patreon. We'll be doing Hot Dog and Gamer Boys, and I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to tell Hollywood Ted he's gonna have to like hold off on whatever agenda he's got because we have to talk about Trap.
We have to do like a basement takes first, and then we'll get in our costumes.
We have to.
Almost.
I want to power rank the cast of the SNL movie. I have some shit to talk about. MCU dorks who are coming at me online. There's a lot to do. There's a lot to do tomorrow. But
check out the Patreon.
3 hours, fucking 3 hours on M. Night Shyamalan, which is deserved, but I'm so tired. Next week, we're going to be talking about Borderlands and Cuckoo.
Oh, good. I'm so excited to see Cuckoo.
What do you think? Is it going to be good?
Yes.
Is this the Dan Stevens we've been promised? I really hope. Like,
I hope so
too.
Can
I finally get the actual Dan Stevens?
I hope Dan's great.
It's like he's always great. It's just like he keeps getting fucked by these dumb movies.
Dude, and Eli Roth's Borderlands, it's got, not that this matters, but it has like a 0% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Apparently it's terrible.
Now. Apparently it
Here's what I want to do.
Eli Roth's my guy, Brett.
I know.
I love Eli.
I would also like, and this is for everybody. Well, maybe we'll do like a poll about this. As part of Borderlands, I would love next week to talk about like your favorite video game adaptations. Maybe we'll do like a top 5 video game adaptations. Because
bring some Rex.
Yes, I'll bring some Rex. Shout out yours on Patreon. We'll do like a poll or something. But next week, let's talk about because like I think Borderlands just seems like objectively like it kind of is shit.
It's gonna be a stinker.
So, but we'll talk about like
maybe it's The Happening for all we know.
Maybe it is.
Maybe Borderlands is The Happening.
It's just a video game adaptation that everyone phoned in, which is fine.
Kevin Hart's.
I hope Cuckoo though is great. I hope Hunter Schafer and Dan Stevens get their fucking nut in that movie. We'll see.
You hope they get their nut?
Figuratively, like I hope they do well in the movie. I hope they kill their performances. It's a figure of speech. Then tomorrow on Hot Dog and Gamer Boys, we'll do our review. We'll
do the show.
Look, really quickly, we love Trap. It's a lot of fun. Go see it, okay? It's a fucking B movie that got made and is in AMC theaters.
It's awesome for 10 reasons. I can talk about it for an hour and a half.
Trap's awesome. It's so
you guys.
fun. It's not in the top 10. It's not in the top 5 of M. Night Shyamalan movies, though. All right, we'll give you our bigger review tomorrow. Join us for Hot Dog and Gamer Boys. It'll be this same set, except we'll be wearing neon tracksuits and eating hot dogs and playing a video game, ostensibly. But it's just another excuse for us to hang out with you and chat about movies, which is the big thing we live for.
Yeah, that's true.
Wife, son, movies.
Oh, yeah, and then
bye.